DNJ's Epic Quest. DNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's
Hey everybody, welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. I am Derek Thord and
Jarza Arlong, the one and only.
the one and only, and it is good to be back. I'm excited to talk about this chapter. It was a lot of fun to read. We got a battle, though it wasn't the one I wanted. It was still a pretty freaking cool chapter. So
It was a really cool chapter. I'm excited to be back doing this. It's been far too long. On top of not being able to interact and create this beautiful content with you, sir, but also because we're not moving on, we're not progressing the story. So it's nice to be back for several factors. Agreed.
So yeah, it'll be good to read on again. It'll be good to talk about this chapter. It'll be a lot of fun. What else has been going on? You've been busy with robotics.
Yep, we
roboting away.
Roboting away. The competition is over. Out of 52 teams, we placed 14th. And by the end of the first day, we had won 5 out of 6 matches. And we were in 6th place going into Saturday competitions. But we had 3 matches. We lost 2 of those 3 for a total of 7 out of 9 matches. And we ended up placing 14th. So we technically got into the playoffs, but the weird way it works is that, like, if you're in the top 8, you get to pick the other 2. You get to pick 2 other teams to join you in an alliance. But because my school doesn't have like a huge like notoriety, like we're not very well known, and we're a pretty small team, like we almost always get passed up.
I know when you were doing that, I was texting you because my nephew was at a robotics competition as well, and I caught like they were scoring the match before him, and I didn't see what happened, but one of the teams got like a yellow card. Like, what do you have to do to get like a penalty?
I don't know.
Oh, never happened?
I don't know. I mean, being that this is my first year coaching, I don't really know all of the minor details yet. So this year was just, I'm just going to observe. But I think that there are going to be some things that I take into next year that I'm like, no, we're not going to do that.
Gotcha.
What about you, dude?
What the hell have I been doing?
I feel like you've been pretty busy too. So for you to not remember.
Yeah, working. My hockey season's done. That wrapped up last Sunday would have been our last game. So I'm done till like August. We're going to rip apart our basement again here pretty quick and waterproof that, which is going to be a lot of work and cost a bunch of money. But I will never have to worry about a wet basement again. Which will be nice.
Yeah, I would say that alone is worth it. Just knowing that, like, or being reassured that, like, water is not destroying my house from inside and I don't even know it, you know?
Yeah, like, it's been a whole thing. So, yeah, I'm trying to think of what I've done since, like, the last time we recorded. My wife's cousin was up from Alabama. We went to a concert, and my wife and stepdaughter are going to dance competition. They're on their way now. To that, I'm not going because my daughter has to work this weekend, and then I really didn't want to leave the house all weekend with our sump pump not effectively working all the time.
It's fair. Be there just in case there's an emergency. Smart.
Yeah, I have to like make it run. Like the float works, the float goes up, but then like it doesn't activate. So like if I push it down, it's like I don't know what the deal is. It's like it's not getting the pressure it needs or something. But then it'll work fine for a few hours until it doesn't, and I don't know. It's weird. It's stupid. It sucks.
Sorry, dude.
Yep. Yeah, it's all good though.
Home ownership, right? Gotta love it.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. All right. Well, anyway, I guess we could probably take it away.
Yeah. Will you want to rattle off the patrons there?
Yes, we've got a few to add here.
I think we had them last time.
Did we?
I think so.
I didn't think that we. Oh, maybe you're right. Maybe, yeah, we had them in episode 11. It's been so long since we recorded that. I don't even remember. All right. Well, sorry, patrons, but here are your honors: Jan the Picker, Luciana Intrigan, Ryan the Topological, Damien the Face in the Rock, Nate Fiddle Me This, Shield Anvil Dylan, Calvin He Who Witnessed, Livia the Malazan Potato, Aaron Mott Irregular, Scott the Only, Graceless Passion, Dead Smell, Gestriant, My Own Genesis, Alex the High Mage, and Tyler the Great Raven. Welcome all to our little chain of dogs here.
Yes, and Tyler is finally able to participate in the chat on Patreon. He was having some problems with that, and I don't know what the deal was, but Patreon support was able to sort that out. So good to see him finally participating. Yeah, before we get started, I don't know if you saw it in the chat, but I told Tyler I had a story to tell. So if we want to get through the epigraphs first, we can do that.
Well, I have a huge ass comment for the subbook epigraph, so why don't you tell Tyler your story?
All right. So I told Tyler he's like in the process of unpacking. He moved and he put a picture up of a moose that he has. I think he said his sister gave him, like a moose head.
Yeah. He hung up the moose head or whatever.
Yeah, and so we were like talking about that, and Jan said something, like, "Oh, better on the wall than in your garden," type deal, and we were just just chatting back and forth, and I don't think I've come across a moose in the wild, but I told them that I've dealt with bears, black bears specifically, in the wild. So when it was like, I don't think I've told the story on the podcast before. Maybe I have, but it was like, must have been like the late 90s. I don't think it was later than 2000 because I don't think we were in high school yet. One 4th of July weekend, my parents took my sister and I, we were up camping up in northern Minnesota in Voyageurs National Park. And we were camping on this big island. And the first day we got there, like we had our dogs with, and the dogs were acting kind of goofy, but we didn't really know what was going on. They just seemed kind of like skittish and nervous. Whatever. We cooked supper and ate and whatever. It was all fine. Went to bed. Fine. And then the next day, we got up doing whatever. Camping activities, right? Had a fire going, had breakfast, cleaned up, all that type of stuff. And my dad, my sister, and I were going to go fishing. So we got in the boat, went to wherever we were going to fish, and my mom stayed back with the dogs. We had two-way radios so we could communicate back with my mom. And we just dropped our lines in the water. My mom comes over on the radio saying there's a bear at the camp. And so we're like, holy shit. So my dad just took off. We didn't even have our lines out of the water yet. We're reeling them up as my dad's hauling ass back to the camp. And we get back to the camp. There's a bear digging in the fire pit. My dog and our other dog, 3 feet away from this thing, the other side of the fire pit, just barking at this black bear. And the black bear just was not even interested in the dogs. Wasn't worried, didn't care. Wasn't scared of the dogs. And, they're not big dogs. They're 40, 50 pounds, maybe, if that, somewhere in that range. And the bear then just kind of lazily swiped at the dogs. And we just saw all this red. And we're like, holy shit. It wasn't blood. There was a bag of fruit in the fire pit that did not burn because there was fruit juice in the bag. So it was the fruit juice that splattered all over. But then the bear walked and went through our screen tent, where we have our portable stove, propane stove. walked right through the screen tent, ripped through it. So then my dad was pissed because we had cleaned up there. Everything was clean, put away. There was no food in there. There was nothing for it. And
Yeah.
so, he wrecked this bear wrecked the screen tent. So my dad grabbed an axe and ran at this bear with an axe. And I'm like, holy shit, what is my dad doing? And so I grabbed the closest thing that I could find, which was a canoe paddle. So I had a canoe paddle and was running after my dad as he chased this bear into the woods. And we get a little ways into the woods and the bear disappeared, right? We couldn't see it, but we heard this really weird hissing noise, which I later found out bears will hiss at you kind of like a cat. And so we kind of, we backed out of the woods. My mom had my sister and our old dog in the boat, but we could not find my dog. So I'm calling for my dog, Roxy. Looking all over for her, can't find her. I happen to look out into the lake, and there's another island a few hundred yards away, however far, I don't really remember. And I see my dog in the lake swimming in circles. So we get in the boat, I pull my dog out of the water, and we look at the beach. And that stupid bear is laying down on the beach, watching my dog swim in circles, waiting for her to get tired so she'll come back into shore. So we went back to our camp. And by this time, it's like supper time. And I don't know why we didn't leave at this point, but my dad's like, we're making supper. And obviously, like, the dogs knew there was a bear around because they were still growling. It was still somewhere close, because it knows there's food. It's like, I don't remember what we made. But so we're sitting there making supper, got the fire going. Here comes a bear walking into our camp. And so it must have been a different one. We know it was a different one because it didn't see us at first. So we started throwing rocks at it. And I hit one of the rocks I threw, hit like a tree or something right next to it. It got spooked and took off. And a few minutes later, some guys on a boat came around and they're like, hey, we just watched a bear swim onto your island. And we were like, yeah, we know, we saw it. That's the second one we've seen today. So then my dad had enough. And he's like, all right, we're leaving. So we packed up all our shit. And as we're leaving, like, these thunderstorms were rolling in. And so really it was kind of like a blessing in disguise because there was like tornadoes and shit up there, which hardly ever happens in that part of the state. Like, it would have been a really, really rough night to sleep in a tent on an island, aside from the fact that we had dealt with two different bears coming into our camp. So they kind of, it took all day, but they chased us out of there. Yeah, so that's my experience dealing with bears in the wild. So, Tyler, there you go. Whenever you get to this episode.
They just nonchalantly were just looking. I mean, I'm assuming that, like, you're not, that they were so desensitized by humans because they just take whatever they needed from whoever was camping there, For them to be completely oblivious to the dogs was like weird.
It was, I think it was a year where, like, there wasn't a lot of food. So it was, a dry spring or something. I don't know, but they were hungry. So food was kind of scarce. So it didn't care. Yeah. But that thing wanted to eat my dog. I can tell you that. It probably would have eventually, if we never would have found my dog. Glad that didn't happen. But,
yeah,
that was an adventure, I suppose. I don't need to deal with a bear ever again in the wild. I've had enough. You're
good. You've had enough for a lifetime.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah. So yeah, I was like 12, 13. I don't know, 7th, 8th grade, something like that. Whatever that is, 11, 12. I don't know. Yeah.
I feel like I remember you telling this story when we were younger, but I probably forgot like about middle.
It was, I'm sure it was probably like it must have been just before we hit high school.
Yeah, because we became friends in 6th grade, right?
6th or 7th. I don't remember if it was at Garfield or Dakota Meadows.
It was Dakota Meadows because we had the same art teacher, Mrs. Callahan.
Yeah, then that was 7th grade.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because 6th grade was at Garfield. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally forgot about it. We had the whole school to ourselves.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. That's crazy.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for bearing with our little
bearing.
That was good. I didn't even try to do that. I wouldn't have noticed if you didn't say anything. my little side story there to start things off today.
Yeah, it's a side quest within a main quest.
That's right. Two
Yeah.
for one.
There you go. All right. Well, subbook here, or subbook epigraph, which is Something Breathes. The art of Rashan is found in the tension that binds the game of light. Yet, its aspect is one of dissipation, the creation of shadow and of dark, although in this case, the dark is not absolute, such as in the aspect of the ancient Warren, Harald Galen. No, this dark is particular, for it exists not through the absence of light, but by virtue of being seen. The mysteries of Rashan, a madman's discourse, Unterol of Lato Ravai. I read this and it was really appealing to me because it's kind of appeals to the super artsy fartsy side of me. But I think I might actually understand it. And so in our world, in order to have darkness, there needs to be the absence of light. When there is light in a dark space, it creates shadows, depending upon how bright the light is. The less light, the harsher the shadows, right? That's our reality. For Malazan, for places like characters like Poos to hide, right? The brighter the light, the weaker the shadows appear. And for Malazan's world, basically what it's saying is that Harald Galen exists because it can be seen and not because there is no light. Does that make sense? So like light doesn't need to exist in order for it to exist.
Sure.
Yeah. Here's just kind of what I've concluded, right? As far as like a hierarchy. So we've got Harald Galen is the Elder Warren, which is the Tistiandi. The human Warren is Rashan, like Nightshell. The Elder Warren for Harald Emerlane is Taistidur. The human Warren is Minas, or Shadowthrone. And then the Elder Warren for Harald Thirol, I can't remember exactly how they say it.
Yeah, I don't know how to say it either.
And those are the Tist Leosons. And then the human Warren is Tyr, which is Tattersail. But also, speaking of Tattersail, or rather Silver Fox, what I find interesting is she has a little bit of Nightchill and Tattersail inside of her. So one is light and one is dark. And I wonder if there's something there, right? Like Nightchill is Rashan, right? And we know that Tattersail is Tyr. So inside of Silver Fox, we have light and dark.
Interesting.
I don't know if that's like a thing or if that's maybe the reason why I maybe anticipate some confrontation within Silver Fox by those two players in future books. I don't know.
We will see.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the epigraph for this chapter.
Light, shadow, and dark. This is a war unending. Fisher.
Sure kind of seems that way too, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, how does any one of those win, really? They all seem to kind of have to exist together.
Fair. All right. So, first section here in chapter 12 of House of Chains. Cutter watched from a doorway as Deris started to prepare to put on his armor. Cutter couldn't believe that such beautiful armor, which clearly had been used, could belong to this silver-haired man. There was something in the way that Deris moved that reminded him of someone he'd met before. Deris was staring at the armor as if stuck or lost in contemplation. Cutter asked if they would survive the attack. Deris says that it is unlikely and explains that 2 shiploads of Edor have braved the storm and landed on the island. He goes on to explain that there would have been more, but the Edor had run into some Malazan ships that came upon them purely by chance. Deris turns and tells Cutter that his human kin did well. He was even impressed by the mage on board, based on the exchange of sorcery. Cutter asked how long ago this was, and why did the Andi just watch? Surely they must have figured the Edor were coming to the island. Deris lifted his armor and replied that the battle happened a week ago, and they no longer leave the island, and for many decades choose to remain isolated. Cutter asked, but why? And Durist did not respond, but rather reached for the sword. Cutter commented that the sword looked flimsy and would break against a heavier weapon. Durist replied that it would not, and that there were many names for the sword. He lifted it free from the blocks and told Cutter that the sword's maker had named it Vengeance, but he, Durist, calls it Corlatus. Cutter asked what it meant. Durist said that it meant grief. Cutter asked who had made it. While donning his armor, he explained that it was made by his brother, before he found one that better suit him. Durist looked Cutter up and down and asked if he had any skill with the knives he had hidden on his person. Cutter said that he drew no pleasure from spilling blood. Durist then asked what they were used for. Cutter didn't have an answer and simply shrugged. Durist followed up with a question about Cutter fighting the Edur. Cutter said that because they were seeking the throne, he would battle with them. Durist questioned him on this and asked why, as this wasn't Cutter's fight. The Daru replied that back on his homeland, Rake and his fellow Andi chose to fight the Malazans that were intruding. It wasn't their battle either, but now they had made it so. Cutter watched as the devilish smile appeared on the Tistandi's face. Durist said that Cutter's response was interesting, but told Cutter to join him and that it would prove to be his final fight. Cutter said that he hoped not. Durist then led him from the room through a narrow archway. The tunnel ended abruptly with an upward turn. They were at a vertical shaft, with roots forming as a ladder for them to ascend. At the top, he saw an orb of light. The ascent was slow, and Cutter grew impatient. That was, until the thought of him dying sunk in. And then his limbs began to tire, and it became a struggle to keep up with the Yandi. They eventually made it to the top and emerged onto leaf-covered flagstones. Durist strode towards a collapsed wall. Cutter makes the comment that if there had been a little upkeep, this place would have been more defensible. Durist explains that the structures were not Andi, but rather Edur, and the buildings were like that when they got to the island. Cutter asked how many of them were there and how close were they. Durist gives him his response, and that they would meet in the courtyard, allowing plenty of room for swordplay. They came upon the courtyard, and opposite from where they came was a trail that wound into the trees of the island. Cutter judged the room and said that there was too much room and they would for sure be flanked. Durist tells Cutter that he will command the center, and for Cutter to take out any of the Edur that did manage to get behind him. Cutter recalls the battle Rake had with the demon in the streets of Darujistan. Durist seems to be using the two-handed fighting style he had seen Rake use against the demon. Cutter asked if Corlatus had been invested. The Andi replied that the investment was not commonly known. He explains that the power of grief lies in the focused intent in its creation. The sword demands a singular will. When it is given, the sword cannot be defeated. Cutter asked if Durist had that will. Durist lowered the blade to the ground and said that if he had that will, it wouldn't be Cutter's last day on Earth. He says that the Edur have discovered the path and now approach. Cutter was scared shitless as he readied his knives. Durist slipped into a fighting stance. He told to keep his eyes slitted. The leaves at the entrance were stirred from movement. 3 tall figures strode into the courtyard. They were about as tall as Durist, but their skin was less saturated. They looked nothing like the majesty of Durist or even Animander Rake. They carried scimitars in their hands and snarled something in a language Cutter did not understand. Durist shrugged at the Edur's demand. The Edur readied their weapons. Cutter could see more of the warriors on the pathway behind. The front 3 Edur stepped from the archway and formed a pincer movement towards Durist. Cutter realizes that the Edur have never faced the Andi before, because it was clear they did not know how or what Durist was doing. Cutter watched as the Andi struck the Edur. One Edur was taken down, and then the other 2 closed in on Durist. The Edur on the pathway surged into the courtyard. Their only method of success was to close in on Durist. Inside the man's reach, Cutter saw another cut down, and then another. Cutter had both leading knives in his left hand. One struck true in an Edur's eye socket, and swore as the other one was met by a shield. Darist's sword was everywhere all at once. An Edur tried to grapple the Andi, but was struck down. Another Edur rushed towards Darist. Cutter made his move toward the remaining Edur. He knew rushing in with knives was not the best tactic, so he chose an Edur that was not paying attention. The Edur warrior saw Cutter through his peripheral vision and was quick to react. The Edur swung at Cutter, but Cutter blocked it with one knife and cut into the arm wielding the sword with the other knife. The Edur tried to pull the blade free, and Cutter whipped around him. The Edur's leg tangled and fell to a knee. Even as he lifted his shield to intercept Cutter's knife, Cutter was able to get over the top of the shield and stab the Edur in the throat. A shield struck him from his left, and he was airborne. He eventually hit the ground, sighed in excruciating pain. Something thumped behind where he had landed. And as he had got up off the ground, the Edur that had flung him in the air, his head had been severed, and it rolled towards Cutter, hitting him in the shin. He screamed a curse as another Edur rushed him. The Edur raised a shield, blinding him from what Cutter would do. Smiling, Cutter met the shield and used his knife to stab over it. Cutter heard shouts in the courtyard, and now it seemed the fighting was everywhere. Cutter stepped back to see another Andi had stepped in to help, and in their midst was Apsalar. He saw 3 Edur behind her, all writhing amidst blood and bile. The rest who hadn't fell were retreating back to the woods. Darist was leaning against a wall, sheathed in blood. One of the other Andi ended the misery of the 3 dying Edur nearby. Cutter realized that the other Andi had hair like Darist's, but did not look as old, and actually appeared to be as young as Cutter himself. Sheathing her knives, she approached Cutter and apologized that they were late. He blinked and shrugged, and instead told her that he had thought she had drowned. Apsalar said that she had made it safely enough, but everything had followed him. She said that there was a sorceress questing, but she was able to evade that. She nods to the other Andi and explains that she found them hiding quite a bit inland. Cutter said that was Darist, and then was cut off, and Apsalar said that his name was actually Andarist, and it was by his command for the other Andi to hide, as he didn't want them there, as he expected them to die. Darist says that, and so they shall, as the Edur will now hunt them. The old hatred is rekindled once more. Apsalar didn't seem affected by his words, and said that the throne must be protected. Darist gritted his blood-stained teeth and said that if he wanted it protected so bad, then he can come here and do it himself. Apsalar answered like an owl, and Cutter explained that Darist meant his brother Rake. You know what I meant by Apsalar answered like an owl?
Ooh.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. Just making sure shit lands.
It's all good, man. We gotta have some fun doing this. We gotta, yeah.
Fair enough. Woofta, what a way to open the chapter.
Yeah, you kind of got hit hard here in this chapter with some long sections.
That's okay. I don't actually mind these fighting ones because they seem to go quicker because I don't have to summarize every action.
I was thinking, like, if I was summarizing this section, I would have cut down the beginning a lot. I would have just said, like, Darist was looking at his armor or something, because there is a lot of description there, how it looks.
It was just like Cutter watched from a doorway as Darist stared or started to prepare to put on his armor. But yeah, that whole first page is just descriptions of the armor.
Yeah, like it was a lot.
Yes, it was. Speaking of his armor, that whole first page is actually very beautiful as far as like its description of the armor and the sword. And there's even a part at the beginning that there's oil dripping down from what I imagine is like the chest plate, right? And it kind of reminded me of the Teblor and the blood oil, which I've kind of found a few similarities throughout this chapter that could be related to the Teblor in some way, shape, or form.
Sure.
So I thought that was pretty entertaining, pretty cool. And also this part where Cutter is just being so observant of Darist's movements I love Cutter's thought, and he thinks that he had seen the old Tist Andi's strength, and there was a mindfulness to his every movement that Cutter recognized. And the last time he saw it, it was said, was with another Andi an ocean away. And he kind of thinks to himself, like, oh, that must just be like a racial trait. Just purely based on the way that Darist is moving, it's almost like there's an intent to every motion of his body. And
I'm sure there is.
right.
Like, not to be, making wasteful movements and that type of thing.
Yep. It's just, I thought it was really cool that this alludes to how he figures out that Rake and Darist are brothers. So that was kind of cool. It's just to like, you don't really gather that when you first read it through. But like when I was summarizing it, I'm like, oh, this is how he's picking up on. Like these are the specific events that are leading Cutter to know who his brother is. And that their movements are so similar,
I was pretty surprised when we got that reveal, but then upon rereading, I was like, okay, there are some hints for sure.
Yeah. This part where, Darist explains to Cutter that for many decades they chose to remain isolated. And this also reminds me of the Templar a bit. Never really leaving their own or other Templars' territory. And I wonder if there's a connection there. Do light, dark, and shadow play a role in every other thing? Well, you may think that it might actually,
I guess we'll see.
Did you when Darist was telling Cutter the name of the sword as Corlatus? I could have swore that we've heard that name before in one other book. Like that was mentioned.
I guess not specifically. I know we had like Coralry or whatever the hell it is that's kind of similar, if maybe that's what you're thinking of, but
no, I could have swore that we heard the word Corlatus.
I don't remember, but I will say I think I like the name Grief better than Vengeance for the sword.
Do you see how they're connected though?
Vengeance and Grief?
Yeah.
How?
Well, I actually have my next thought here is this.
I'm just setting you up. I guess I'm not sure that I would have picked it up anyways, but I haven't scrolled down that far yet.
No, fair. No, that's fair. But I mean, like, banking off this Corlatus conversation, Cutter is basically kind of asking a million questions, right? And Darist is explaining that the sword was made by his brother until he found something that better suited him, right? So I found that interesting. So Rake makes the sword and names it Vengeance. And then later we find out there is a certain mindset you need to have to tap into its investment. Rake names it Vengeance, then gets Dragnapur by killing Draconis. And his brother says it suits him better. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but it almost seems like it's a little bit of jab at Rake, as the sword and Rake seem to belong to each other or something. But then Darist renames the sword to Grief, which means, or seems like an opposite of Vengeance. Like a terrible decision gone awry, which is just the vibes I'm getting with the Andi in particular. So I think that like when you have vengeance, right? When you're just seeing red, right? Like you're not necessarily of the mindset or the deductive logical reasoning to act, right? Like you just act without consequence. And I think that is what leads to grief.
I definitely can get on board with that because once you cool down, you realize that maybe you didn't act in the best way possible. Maybe you're going to regret something. And then, you have that grief that, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
Dragnapur better suits Rake because when he kills, they're not really dead. They're just trapped inside of his sword. So he doesn't necessarily have to feel that grief. Like he's allowed to partake in vengeance, but without the consequences is kind of what it made Dragnapur seem to me. And that's why he says that it was better suited for him.
I was just thinking he wanted to capture their souls like their Pokemon or something, I don't know.
Gotta catch them all.
Yeah. But obviously, I don't know. It is a hell of a punishment, though.
It is. And I think that like Rake is probably just being way more stoic about it than he wants to give off. And that it actually does affect him. We don't really get Rake's side of it yet, but we do get his brother's perspective. This part where Cutter said that he drew no pleasure from spilling blood, I find this really interesting because isn't he under the impression that Apsalar does? Because he thought if he changed his persona to match hers, she would like him more. It's like he doesn't like to spill blood, but yet he's like putting on this charade to make her think that she does because he thinks she does. I just thought it was funny.
It does seem like Apsalar, I don't know if maybe pleasure is the right word for it, but it does seem like she doesn't care if she does kill somebody.
Well, I mean, even for example, the 3 Edur she takes down, she doesn't kill them, but like they're suffering. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Cutter is clearly making observations. Like, she doesn't seem to be revealing how she actually feels to those observations to him. But I just think it's funny that he's like, I draw no pleasure from spilling blood, but yet he thinks Apsalar does without actually knowing it. He's just assuming.
Right.
And he's changed his whole persona based on that assumption. Throwing some deep ones at you. Sorry, dude.
It's all good. I don't always have answers for him, though. That's all.
It's okay. I don't always have answers either. This part where Cutter is saying, hey, Rake chose to fight against the Malazans on my homeland because they were intruding. I just want to do the same. And it brought me back to Quintilian and Cutter's conversation about reciprocity. I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. So
teamwork.
Yeah. When they're talking about the ruins of the city, and I know that you and I had a brief conversation about this, I'm guessing that they're Edur because this island is from part of their shattered realm, if that makes sense. Like if Minnesota or any other state is the Edur realm in its whole, and then it was shattered into however many pieces, a piece of Minnesota that is Blue Earth County is now floating in a sea called Drift Avali, is kind of how my mind interprets that.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like, has this island always been floating around? Maybe not.
I mean, it definitely gives the impression that it's been there for a long time because Durist even reveals that these ruins were here long before we got here.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna guess that they were Edur, and when it got sundered, this is like the throne room that has gone blast away from the rest of its shattered fragments and is now floating in the sea, I guess, is how I think about it. Kind of going back to the grief conversation, Durist explains that the power of grief lies in the focused intent in its creation. And that's kind of where, going back to our conversation about when you see red, you just strike without realizing the outcome or giving it any thought. It was such a cool way of explaining something. The power of grief lies in the focused intent in its creation, which again kind of reminds me of the Andean whole, right? Like they just seem to be a race that is grieving perpetually. So what is it that they did out of vengeance that has caused them to grieve?
Oh, sorry. I was thinking of the Telanimus for whatever reason. Never mind. I don't know.
But also, and I guess it doesn't really matter because it doesn't really pertain, but in the Onrak section of this chapter, he kind of looks at his shadow and he's like, I am your master and you are its slave. You are my slave, right? Like, you do not exist without me type of thing. And this is kind of why I think Durist can sense the Edur, right? Is because the Edur are essentially a shadow of the Andi, right? Just like the Hounds of Shadow are shadow of the Hounds of Darkness. So I think that what has happened is the Edur did not like the thought of being slaves to the Andi, and so therefore they have rebelled in some type of way. And in order to keep them in line, the Andi retaliated, blah, 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 and are now guarding their thrones so they don't rise to that power, etc., etc. It's just kind of like maybe the way that I'm thinking with like the very small hints that I'm picking up from sections that aren't even related to the Andi or the Edur.
Nice pickups.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. It'd be really kind of cool to. I don't even know if that's a possibility, but the discussion on the Patreon, the spoiler discussions, if they're just book related, it would be kind of cool to go back and see if we were right on stuff pertaining to the book or the chapter when we're done.
It is hard to not want to go look in that chat.
Yeah, I'm sure it's probably more tempting for you as you're a little bit more interactive on it than I am, which I should probably be better about.
It's all good, man. But yeah, I guess what Justin's talking about, everyone, is that we took one of our other patrons had a suggestion that we make a spoiler chat within the patron app or whatever, so they could talk about whatever. And yeah, we just stick out of it.
Yep.
And yeah, we don't know what's going on in there.
Stay away. And then also kind of the second clue that I think Cutter kind of recognizes that Durist and Rake are siblings is just the way that he is fighting. It reminds him of the way Rake battled the demon in Jerujistan. So it's just a cool way of picking up those little like small, really nuancy things. But also it's kind of a small little recollection of the first book, right? I haven't thought about Gardens of the Moon for a minute.
It has been a hot minute.
I have a lot of comments on the section. I'm so sorry.
Well, you had this is two pretty long sections to start things off with.
Yeah. The whole slitted, Duris asks Cutter to like squint or slit his eyes. I'm wondering if you had any thoughts about that.
The only thing I can think of is that he's like telling him to stay focused or something.
Well,
but that's kind of a weird way to do it.
Yeah. I know that the sword kicks up a bunch of like wind and dust as he like starts to swing it, you know? So I'm wondering if he's just saying like, hey, like slit your eyes so you don't get dust in it. So that like you can still see.
Yeah, maybe.
I didn't know if like you would pick something else out or if that even sounds logical. I don't know.
I think it seems logical.
Okay. Well,
never been in a sword fight, so
yeah, me neither. Oh man. Well, I guess community, do your thing if you want to.
What?
Oh, tell us otherwise.
Oh, I just okay, gotcha. I did not hear the first words you said. That's all. Sorry. I was like,
okay.
What are you talking about?
Oh yeah, in this comment, the Majesty, when the Edur first appear, and Cutter's like, oh well, they just kind of seem like harsher reflections, right, of the Andi. And I'm like, well, duh, Cutter, because the Edurs are shadows of the Andi, you know, like a condescending dick that I am to Cutter. But yeah, so it's just kind of cool that like you almost get this train of thought where the Edur and the Andi are almost the same, but yet they exist as like a different species.
Yeah.
This kind of goes back to my comment about the Edur and the Andi, as Cutter observes that the Edur didn't seem to know how to fight the Andi. And this is where this might poke a little holes in what I mentioned earlier, but maybe theory time, so I'm going to chat for a little bit. This tells me specifically that the Andi potentially didn't sunder or shatter the Edur. Because, I mean, why they would be guarding their throne, though, that's a little weird to me, because that tells me otherwise. But maybe there's a thought that they're protecting it on behalf of the Edur. Maybe they know the Edur have been corrupted. So maybe they're just protecting it from themselves because they're not themselves, if that makes any fucking sense. That's not really my point my point is that I don't think that the Andi are the ones that struck the Edur. But what if the birthing of light caused the shattering, right? Like think about light illuminates darkness, creating shadows. Shadows are reflections of darkness. The light didn't like this illegitimate birth, and so shattered their Warren, causing it to fragment.
Damn, dude.
Again, this is like the art side of me, right? Like light and shadows and darkness are what give my creations dimension, depth, everything and anything that this world would explore in its themes. So, like, I'm really fascinated by like this light, shadow, darkness stuff.
I can tell.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's just cool, man. It's definitely cool.
I don't know. I guess what do you think about that? What do you think that the possibility of just light being born causing shadows, and they don't like the fact that the shadows exist because they're pure creatures, right? Shadows are not necessarily pure.
Aren't the Leosans the ones that think they're like the most pure?
Yeah. And they don't seem to respect Troll Sengar.
Yeah, they definitely look down on.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting theory. I would not be surprised if you were right.
Really.
I don't have anything to throw back at you on that to refute it or anything.
It's not, yeah. I mean, if you had refuting, great. But I think it's just more of, you take the Andi who are grieving, right? Like something had to have tragically happened. And the only thing that I can think of that tragically happened, the Edur themselves, right? Like their story calls for you to grieve what happened. But then you got the Leosans who are just like so high and mighty, like, hey, you get off my cloud type of thing. They don't seem to be grieving at all. So it's just kind of one of those things where like you've got these polar opposites. And then you've got this thing in the middle that's just like trying to survive. So I don't know. What else could it be? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
So like I'm really excited to read the Carcanas trilogies. So hopefully when I get to those books, A Walk in Shadow will be out. Or no,
I think
wait.
that's supposed to be out this year.
Yeah, the end of 2020. Yeah, the end of this year, I think. Is it Walk in Shadow?
I think that was I know I sent you a picture.
Yeah. Or is that the one that was...
Or maybe what I sent you was just where he said he wasn't going to be physically signing the books anymore.
I don't remember. The electronic ones.
Yeah.
I mean, I have so many books with his signature on it that like I don't care.
I don't really either.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't like the main, that wasn't like the reason why I was getting them,
Right. Yeah. So yeah, hopefully, but I also thought that like the third book was so big that he had to split it up into another one. So now there would be 4 books in the Kirkanis series.
I don't know if that was that one or if that was one of the other one. I don't know.
Yeah. I'll have to do some digging afterwards. But yeah.
We've got, by the time we get there, all the books should be written, I think.
Otherwise, we might have to start over. I'm just kidding.
I don't know about that, dude.
I'm sure he could crank out this whole series in about a year.
Ooh.
I could.
Oh, reading it?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I bet you could for sure. It's
going to be weird having to discuss what we're going to do next. I know that it's like a long way off, but just thinking about like, okay, well, this is our last book. What do we want to do next?
Good thing we've got some time.
Yeah, that is true. We'll let future D&J worry about it.
Exactly.
Okay, well, anyway, that's my theory, how the 3 are endlessly at each other's throats. So I like this part where, so like after that, there's the battle, right? Like just Durist is getting attacked. He's kicking ass, taking names. Cutter's getting involved, throwing his knives, blah, blah, blah. And then there's this part where at the end, he gets like shoved by a shield, thrown into the air, lands, gets up, and then he hears like a thumping sound after it, and like a severed head hits a shin. And I just thought to myself, oh my God, this is some humorous irony. They decapitate and remove heads and then reanimate the body. And I have a feeling, though, that this head will not be reanimated. But I just thought that was funny that, like, this is the staple of what the Edur do to their enemies. And yet we have a headless Edur rolling towards the shin of Cutter.
I don't know if I remember that or if I picked it up.
On the
picked up on that.
Solanda? What?
Well, I remember the stuff on the Solanda.
Oh, sorry. I'm lost then. What are you trying to say?
Maybe I'm lost too.
I'm just saying that, like, the Tist Edur had severed the heads of Andi on the Solanda.
Solanda. Okay.
So I think it's a little bit ironic that the Edur are losing their heads.
Oh, gotcha.
Because this is what they do to their enemies.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I follow you.
I almost kind of feel like there's two different types of Edur. Like, there's the Troll Sengars who, like, seem to question things, and then there's the Edur that are just blindly following whatever's controlling them.
They seem more like assholes.
Yeah. Those are the ones that, like, have forgotten their history. Whereas, like, Troll Sengars acknowledge their history and actually try not to repeat it. I don't know. I just kind of get that feeling, even though I'm probably wrong. And then when Apslar came in for the first time, I'm like, oh my God, this is such a relief. My, like, heart lifted with glee when I read her name.
I didn't think she was going to be dead.
I didn't think either, but it was just like a nice confirmation, I guess you could say.
I wasn't sure how she was going to, like, show up or anything, but this seems to fit, you know. It doesn't seem out of place or anything.
Fair enough. This part where she's talking about how everything had followed Cutter, and that she explains that there was a sorceress questing, and she was able to evade that. And I'm wondering if the sorceress questing was in regards to the boat getting pulled under, or is this pertaining to something else?
I kind of thought that's like somehow how Darius knew who was on the island, where they were, that type of thing.
Yeah, you're right, because he wasn't able to pick up.
So he just assumed she was dead.
Yeah, good catch. I wasn't sure what that was talking. And then my last comment: the old hatred is rekindled once more, is what Durist is saying to everyone else about the Eater hunting them down now. And I'm thinking to myself, I would hate my caster if I was a shadow of myself too.
Well, you can't help what you are.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, those were all my thoughts in that very intriguing and very entertaining opening section to this chapter. So
there's a lot that happened for sure.
Yeah, this is probably one of my favorite chapters in the book so far.
Yeah, it was a good one for sure. Not top,
but like one of them.
Yeah. All right. We'll keep going on here. My first section then. It was a shot in the dark, but Darist's expression told Cutter he was right. Anomander's younger brother, though he didn't share his draconian blood and carried the sword Rake had deemed insufficient when compared to Dragnapur. The rift between the brothers was a story neither was likely to tell Cutter. Things were even messier when Cutter found out the youths, I'm assuming these ones that were with Apslar, were actually Rake's grandchildren. Their parents had succumbed to Rake's flaw, wandering and vanishing into the mists to shape private worlds in far-off, isolated places. The search for loyalty and honor, Darius sneered at his niece Fade, dressed his wounds. She was the one who mercy-killed Apslar's victims. Darius had taken at least a dozen strikes from the heavy scimitars. Cutter wasn't sure how he was able to stand, much less how he was able to continue to fight. With the sword, he didn't think he had the full capacity to use. His right arm was a mess and useless. The wound on his hip drug him to the ground, and he was unable to rise again without help. There were 9 dead Edur, and their retreat was more likely from the desire to regroup rather than be hard-pressed. Worse yet, they were only a scouting party. There were 2 huge ships offshore yet that could house hundreds of warriors. Apslar judged as she scouted the area they were anchored. Apslar said there was plenty of wreckage in the water. It looked like they had been in a fight. Cutter said they ran into 3 Malazan warships, a chance crossing, but according to Darist, the Malazans held their own. Cutter watched as the grandchildren fussed over Darist. His side ached, and Cutter said he was surprised by them. They were never taught to fight. Absalar said Darist wanting to protect them could be a fatal mistake. Cutter said the Edur know they exist now, and that wasn't a part of Darist's plan. Absalar said they were given a task. Cutter was quiet, thinking on her rough statement. He'd always thought the ability to inflict death and danger to certain wisdom of the fragility of the spirit, of its mortality. He had seen this with Ralik Nam, but he did not see this with Absalar. She had taken focus and made it a weapon, or perhaps a means of self-defense. The 3 Edur she had taken down, she didn't mean for them to die quickly, but it didn't look like she took pleasure in the act either, as a sadist might. It was as if she was trained as a torturer. However, Cotillion, Dancer, wasn't a torturer, but an assassin. Absalar looked at Cutter and said he was in no shape to be fighting. He replied, saying neither was Darist. She said the sword would carry Darist, but he, or Cutter, would prove to be a liability. Cutter asked what he was supposed to do. Kill himself now so he wasn't in her way? Absalar shook her head, but the look on her face suggested it was a reasonable idea. Absalar told Cutter there were others hiding on the island, not well enough to escape her notice. She wanted him to go get them for help. Cutter asked who he was supposed to find. She told him the Malazans from the ships, and there is one with power among them. Cutter looked to Darist, propped against a wall, resting. Hardly able to tell he was alive, but for the slight heaving of his chest as he breathed. Cutter asked where he would find these others. All right. Let me find my comments here. They're buried down there a little bit after all yours.
Sorry.
It's all good. This my first thought here, unless I read it wrong, it's talking about Darist being Rake's younger brother, but though they didn't share draconian blood. And I was kind of confused by this. Like, is this saying that they had different fathers?
Or mothers, yeah. That's
Okay.
what I would assume. That's how I interpreted it, is that they're step brothers.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I might have misinterpreted this, but I thought, the first time I read this and it's talking about Rake's grandchildren, I thought that Darist wanted to kill them at first. And I'm like, well, he doesn't seem like a very good uncle then. And I don't know why I thought that, because I think there was something a little further down where, I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe that's not what I thought it meant. But that was the vibe I got for whatever the first time reading it.
Yeah, I think Darist just wanted to make it look to the Edur that he was the only one left on the island.
Gotcha. Cutter thinking to himself about just Absalar and her, this rough statement she had. Cutter had always thought the ability to inflict death and danger to certain wisdom of the fragility of the spirit, of its mortality. I kind of feel like it's saying that this is saying that killing someone takes a piece of the killer as well, is kind of what I got from that. I don't know how you felt about it. And I feel like that kind of ties into the end where, Cutter's thinking about how it looks like she's torturing these people almost, when she mortally wounds them, but they're dying a slow death, right? But it also doesn't look like she's getting enjoyment out of it either. So I don't know. I don't really know what to make of that.
Well, it kind of seems to be a little bit back and forth, right? And granted, these are all from Cutter's perspectives, right? So I think this is just trying to show his doubt about how he actually feels about Absalar.
I can see that. I mean, because it's complicated.
Yeah, it is really complicated. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I would agree with you about the killing someone takes a piece of the killer as well. But he's also kind of seeing that okay, well, maybe that's true because this situation applies, but maybe that's not true because this situation applies. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Moving on here. I thought it was interesting that Absalar, she's she's saying that there's a mage among them, right? Among these
Yeah.
other Malazans that are hiding on the island. But she doesn't say the word mage. She says that there's one with power among them. And I thought that was interesting. Do you think there's anything to that?
Oh, for sure. I think it happens in the next section.
Okay. I just thought it was interesting that she didn't use the word mage.
Do you want me to reveal it now, or do you want me to read and see if you can figure it out?
I would say just go for it.
Tell me, or tell you, or read.
Tell me, yeah.
Traveler.
I didn't think he was the mage. Or
No, he's
I
not
guess.
the mage. Power.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Interesting. You know, I had asked Jan if Traveler is somebody that we had met previously.
Yep.
Because I just kind of have this feeling that it's somebody that's like, I feel like we've seen this person, and I don't know who it could be. But
What did Jan say?
he didn't give me an answer.
Good job, Jan.
Yeah.
He gives me Gruntle vibes. Not that I think he's Gruntle. I think he's totally someone else. But he just kind of gives me those like early memories of Ice Gruntle vibes.
Just kind of standoffish and stuff.
Yeah. But anyway, did you have any other thoughts about section 2, or?
I do not think so.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty straightforward. I feel like the things you called out are the things that I would have called out. So I don't know if I have anything else to add to it.
Yeah, let's keep her rolling.
All right. Cutter ran through the ruin-filled forest. He ran along the trail that Apslar had laid out for him. The ruins were from a huge dead city dominated by huge buildings. He passed a collection of broken and crumbled statues. He suspected that these were figures of the Edur. He was shivering as he padded along. His left arm was useless and doubted that he would be able to put up much of a fight if the need arrived. He could make out his destination ahead, a pyramid of rocks with trees flanking the side. He located the cave, and by every instinct that told him not to, he yelled out, "Hey, Malazans!" He yells again and says that he knows they are within the cave and they should come out. Figures did eventually appear, but with crossbows raised at him. A woman told Cutter to put his hands out to the side. He explains that his left arm was useless. They tell him to come ahead anyway. He approached and saw that the speaker was a woman, not much older than him. Another woman next to her was badly burned on the side of her face, and a Dal Hanese man stood behind the pair. The flanking Marines were all in full armor. Cutter asked if they were the only survivors left because he needed their help. They were being assailed by the Edur. The Malazan party didn't seem to understand who he was talking about. Cutter explains that the seafarers that they had battled with were Edur, and they were looking for something on this island, something of vast power, and explains that if they got it, all of humanity was likely finished. The older lady that was burnt started to laugh at this and made some wry remarks about what Cutter had said. Cutter then explained that the Throne of Shadow is what the Edur were seeking. The Dal Hanese man seemed to take interest in this, and the old woman said that this was true, and her senses were coming back like a flood. The Edur had sent a fleet from far away to find this island. Amanus and Cotillion were going to be usurped. She continued to say that it was a waste that they had fought the Edur, lost lives and ships for the Throne of Shadow. While the old lady had a coughing fit, the younger woman said that this wasn't their battle, and Cutter should look elsewhere. She was interrupted when the Dal Hanese man said no. The man turned to him and said that they were grateful for what he, the traveler, had done to save them, but that didn't mean he was in charge. The man named Traveler explained that Cutter wasn't exaggerating when he made his claims in describing the risks to humanity. Whether they like it or not, the Warren of Shadow is now human aspected. The female captain asked if the Traveler claimed this fight on behalf of the Malazan Empire. The man said that he did. The captain gave an order to one of her soldiers. A moment later, he and others came running out of the cave. Cutter then walked up to the captain and said that there was one with significant power among them, and asked if the old woman spitting up blood was the sorceress. The captain said yes, but she was dying, and was going to say something about the old woman's power when they felt a concussion of some kind. Cutter turned around and said that the Edur were attacking again. Cutter bolted back towards the courtyard and heard a faint cursing, and then the captain barking out orders. Cutter would not wait for them. The trail led straight to the courtyard, and he had to get back to as Apslar and Daris and the young Andi were there, and they stood little chance of defense against sorcery. Cutter thought he did, though. There was a mixture of colors in the air as he approached the courtyard. There were no eater outside the archway, which he thought was odd. As he raced for the opening, he saw a company of Edur approaching from the direction of the beach. He thought to himself that the Malazans would have to deal with them. As Cutter entered the courtyard, he saw 4 Edur, each rolling a storm of sorcery at Darist. Apslar was either dead or unconscious, and behind Darist sprawled Rake's grandchildren. Somehow, though, Darist had managed to keep hold of his sword. And the Andi was in bad shape and getting worse, and he held his own against the sorcery. Cutter got closer to the Edur and called upon Blind. The Hound of Shadow was suddenly by his side. The Hound of Shadow sprung forward. One of the Edur turned around and issued a harsh command that stopped the Hound dead in its tracks. Cutter swore and drew a knife. Suddenly, the courtyard was in shadow. Cotillion made quick work of the 4 Edur with a rope that acted like a snake. When Cotillion was done, there was nothing but corpses around him. He threw his hood back and he faced the Hound. He was about to say something angrily, but then didn't. Instead, shadows spilled out to engulf the Hound, and he was gone. There was fighting beyond the courtyard, and Cutter said that the Malazans needed help. The rope said that they didn't. Both turned as they heard the clatter of Darist's sword on the ground, and Darist lay motionless. Cotillion looked sad and told Cutter that when he arrives, to guide him to the sword and tell him its names. Cutter was very confused by this and asked what the rope had meant. Cotillion didn't answer, but surveyed the mayhem and disappeared. Cutter ran to Apslar's side and knelt down. Cutter observed her tattered appearance, and based on the muscle spasms from the sorcery, she was alive. He tried to wake her, but it couldn't. He heard footsteps approaching, and he looked up. Traveler stepped into view. His sword was broken. The man held it still. Somehow, he knew he was the only one left of the Malazans, but Cutter couldn't help himself. He had to get up and look. Cutter had a chilling thought about sending these Malazans to their deaths. Cutter turned around and saw the traveler rummaging amongst the bodies. Cutter asked if it was really a Malazan battle. The man shrugged, and Cutter felt a cold chill. The traveler stated that some of the Andi were still alive, and then made his way to Apslar. Cutter explained that she was a friend. Traveler moved on to Darist, and stepped over the fallen Andi. He went to pick up the sword. Cutter told him to be careful. The man lifted the blade. Cutter recalled what Cotillion had told him, and told the man that the sword's name was Vengeance, or Grief, and that it could be chosen which better suited him, and that it could be chosen of whatever better suited him. The traveler asked if Cutter didn't want the sword for himself. The Daru said that the sword was meant for a singular will, and he didn't think he had what it took. The man nodded and then bent down to retrieve the scabbard. He asked Cutter who Darist was. Cutter explains that now that Darist is dead, there was no one to guard the island. Traveler said that he would abide here for a time. Cutter offered to help. Traveler interrupted him and told Cutter to take his girl and leave. The god that had been here has taken out the Edur ships, and if so, any stumble on this island, he will take care of them. Just then, Apslar groaned, and Cutter was by her side. Cutter picks her up and is about to carry her away. He stops to take in Traveler for a moment, and for the first time, sees sorrow in the man's eyes. The man turned away and told Cutter to tell his thanks for the sword to Cutter's god. Yeah, such an intense section.
Yeah, another longer one.
But helped that I didn't have to summarize all of the fighting. I thought that this was interesting. When Cutter first notices the Dalhanese man behind the younger woman and the older woman who was the sorceress or the mage, Cutter has a thought that the man's expression was so closed that he could have been Apslar's brother. And I think this is such a unique way to describe the emotions of this man, or just the way that he's looking, because we have such a cool, or I guess, canon around the way that Apslar behaves. that you can almost kind of project what we know and think about Apslar onto this man. So I just thought that that was a cool way of getting us to understand what he's trying to say.
He's pretty cold.
Yeah. And then this part where the old lady was saying that her senses were coming back like a flood. And I thought that that was a nice little homage to the prologue, and also with themes throughout this book.
Good catch.
Oh, yeah. This part where, as he's running back to the courtyard to like relieve Apslar and Darist, Cutter has this thought that he could defend against sorcery. And did I miss something? Or when did he get so confident that he could take on sorcery? Like, he almost has this like indestructible attitude about it. Did I miss something? Or is he just that confident?
I guess he's just confident. I can't think of anything right now, but
This also made me think of Opon, though, right? You remember in Gardens of the Moon where clearly Gano's got the shit end of the coin, where Cutter got the good side of the coin? Even though he tossed the coin in Lake Azure or whatever, do you think that maybe Opon is still with him in some way, shape, or form? I feel like I brought this up before.
I don't know. I guess I'm going to think probably not.
I mean, yeah, it's one of those things that just tugs at my brain every once in a while, because Cutters does seem to get lucky, whereas like Paran seems to get the shit end of the stick. Like, he doesn't want to be master of the deck.
Sometimes it doesn't matter what you want, though, right?
Right. Okay. Well, just a thought.
Good thoughts.
So when Blind appears, I didn't catch this the first time I read it, but when I was summarizing it, the Edur give him a command and he stops. And so I feel like I felt like I had theorized this in some previous episode, that the Hounds of Shadow belonged to the Edur before their realm was shattered. And I feel like this kind of confirms that, because Blind just stops dead in his tracks.
I remember feeling like he got spooked or something, or I guess Blind. I don't remember if Blind's male or female, but I do remember getting the sense that something spooked Blind.
Yeah. Well, and when Quintilian shows up after he disposes of the Edur so quickly, he almost like seems like he's going to reprimand the Hound, but then stops and just sends her away instead.
Yeah.
All of that kind of made me think this thought. Also, Quintilian with the level of decapitation with the goddamn rope snake was fucking brutal, and I loved it. It was so cool. I wasn't going to summarize it though, but like, he made quick work, and it was fun to read.
It was cool. And when I was reading that, I was thinking like, this sounds like the guy who's on the cover of the Bone Hunters book. But then I looked on that cover and it's like a guy holding knives. I'm like, oh, never mind.
You thought it was rope?
I thought so. For some reason, I couldn't remember what that character was holding. And I'm like, oh, I better check that out. So I looked and I'm like, oh.
I wonder if that's
don't think so. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting.
Just trying to draw things, further out instead of just being patient until we get there.
Hey, I mean, we're over halfway, so like we just have this left.
That's still a lot.
Yeah, but when you think about it, not really. Like 400 pages goes by quick, especially with these chapters. Like,
what do we got? Like 10 chapters left?
Yeah, no,
something like that.
Chapter 12.
I don't remember how many chapters there are.
I think there's 25. 26. There's 26 chapters.
So we are halfway by chapters then.
Yeah, but a little bit more than over half by book. I doubt that we're going to run into maybe that many more long chapters, but I guess we'll see.
We'll see.
By the time we're at the end of this next one, we should be almost into the 600s, and then away we go.
No big deal.
Yeah. All right. Here's another longer thought.
All right. Lay it on.
Quintilian looked sad and told Cutter that when he arrives, guide him to the sword and tell him its names. And I just felt like this was just so goddamn loaded with stuff that we don't even know about. But there's two things that I feel like I can say for certain. and that Cotillian's sadness at Darith's death tells me that there it has to be some type of familiarity with each other, either past or present. And is it possible that Cotillion made a deal with the Andi to protect the island, but also maybe in exchange to defend Genebacus from the Malazan invasion? Is that why they fought for Genebacus? Why Darith smiled when Cutter said he was helping the island because of what Rake did for Genebacus? Secondly, this traveler person, there seems to be some setup here from Cotillion as well. Was the traveler Cotillion's backup plan? Kind of seems like there's some prior knowledge there. Those are like the two things that seem to be a certainty, and there's really not much more than that, because there really isn't any more information as far as like hints or clues that I'm picking up on. But it almost kind of seems like reciprocity, right? Keep going back to that. Hey, Andi, Mr. Rake, I'll help you protect the throne from the Edur if you help to keep the Malazans at bay on Genebacus, because I have some type of need there.
I don't know. I am uncertain on Traveler. I guess I'll say that. I feel like it's somebody we've met before. I still have that vibe, but as far as like the backup plan, I don't know. I hadn't thought about that.
Because it seems like there has to be a reason why Cotillion seems to know that Traveler is here, right? Like they have to have some type of connection to each other.
It wouldn't make sense that it's a Manus, right?
No.
I wouldn't think so, because he would just, I feel like he wouldn't have been in that, they wouldn't have been in that position. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by Traveler, and I feel like it's probably going to be one of those like, fuck, it was him,
Yeah.
But I guess we'll find out.
Hopefully.
Yeah. But also there's this part at the end where the man turns away and tells Cutter to thank him for the sword, or tell Cutter to thank his god for the sword. So again, there seems to be some type of arrangement.
I don't know if I brought this up before, but when I think about like the Andi, and especially like when they die, it almost feels like if something else sees a dead Andi, it would be similar to like you or I if we're driving down the highway and we see like a dead deer on the highway. Just kind of like, well, that sucks, somebody hit it, but that's kind of it.
Right. You don't pass them under there.
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of indifference towards them.
Like they're expendable.
Yeah, but even like I remember feeling that from like Corlat a little bit. I don't know. Just a weird thing I've kind of felt, I guess.
Well, I guess we'll have to see if you continue to keep feeling that way as we move on.
Yeah, maybe it'll change.
It's interesting. Yeah, I don't know if I have like any. I would have to definitely mull on that a little bit longer before I can give you any sustainable yes or no's.
Mull on it, Justin. I'm mulling.
All right. Well, are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
All right. A chunk of floor had fallen into the subterranean river below. Next to the hole was a pile of spears with a rope tied to it that reached down to the water, snaking about as the current pulled. Kalam leaned over the edge, looking at the water. Sergeant Cord said it was the well. Kalam asked what the hell made the lieutenant and captain climb down there. Cord said if you look long enough while the room is dark, you will see a glow. There is something lying on the bottom about twice a man's height in depth. It looks like a man in armor spread-eagled. Kalam said to get rid of the torches then. He wanted to see this. Cord snarkily asked the corporal if he had said something, if he didn't remember. His demon friend had disappeared. Kalam sighed and said, yeah, demons tend to do that, and you should be thankful. Also, Kalam was of the opinion that they had been stuck in the mountain for too long. Perhaps they'd lost their minds. Kalam had also reconsidered his words about him being a part of the company. He had reached a decision, and it is this. He is not a part of Cord's company. He is a bridge burner, and Cord is Ashok Regiment. If that isn't good enough, Kalam is taking up his old title as Claw, leader of a hand. So in the field, he is outranked by Clawmaster Topper, the adjunct, and the Empress herself. So get the torches out of here now. Cord smiled and said if he wanted control of the company, he can have it. However, they would deal with Iris themselves. He took the torches from the wall. Cord's change of tune surprised Kalam and then filled him with suspicion. He thought he would have been better off alone and wondered where the demon went anyways. He told the sergeant once he was done to prepare the troops to leave this place. Cord asked about the captain and lieutenant, and Kalam wasn't concerned about them. They either drowned or turned up somewhere downstream. Either way, they weren't here and probably weren't coming back. Kalam's eyes adjusted to the dark, and sure enough, he saw a glowing figure below the water's surface. He grabbed the rope and coiled it like a snake to the side. He had about 20 arm lengths, but there was more with the spears. Kalam tied a rock he hoped was big enough that it would pretty much go straight down in the water. He pushed the rock over the edge, but as it fell, it stopped short of the figure, but it must be close. Kalam took the bundle of spears and fed more rope. Kalam figured this thing was bigger than the captain and lieutenant thought. Finally, the rock made contact with the figure, and at the distance, the rock looked small. He figured the armored creature must be 3 times a man's height. Kalam squinted down, wondering about the glow, and grabbed the rope to retrieve the stone when the hand underwater flashed up and grabbed the rope and pulled. Kalam fell into the water, pulled by 2 chain-clad fists face to face with the creature's helm. He saw teeth with no lips. It spoke in Kalam's mind. "The other 2 eluded me, but you I will have. I am so hungry." Kalam answered back, replying, "Hungry? Try this," as he stabbed the creature in the chest with his long knives. The creature bellowed and shot Kalam away faster and harder than he thought possible. He held his weapons and shot back into the hole like a geyser. He hit the ceiling, knocking his breath away. He landed half on the ledge and was nearly taken by the river, but was able to hold on. Cord burst back in, asking what in Hood's name had happened. Where were the spears? Kalam gasped and told him to stop. Cord asked what they needed to stop. "Look at the water." "Stop what?" Kalam said, "Stop drawing from this well."
When I first read this section, it was so out of the blue. I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah. I was just thinking about this as I reread the chapter, but this little bit towards the end where Kalam's like, "Hungry? Try this," just reminds me of the bit in Aliens where they have they're retreating from the battle in the hive and they're trying to close the door on their carrier or whatever.
Yep.
And the alien bursts in and is not letting him close it. So the guy sticks the shotgun in his mouth. "Eat this!" And blows its head off. It's kind of what that reminded me of.
I could see that.
I like Aliens.
I do too.
All right. I got a couple thoughts here. First one, made me think of Damien right away. Just the rope tied to it and the water snaking about as the current pulled it. Obviously, pretty easy snake reference there. And I'm pretty sure we've had others this chapter as well. But
for sure. Yeah.
Kalam, when he's getting kind of tired of Cord here, and he's like, "I'm taking up my old title as Claw, leader of the hand, so you know what, you don't outrank me." And I think Kalam's got to be one of the quickest thinking and smartest characters in the series, right? Granted, most of them are pretty. There's not any I don't feel like there's any stupid characters. I mean, you've got some crazy ones, and Poost kind of comes to mind. That dude's wacko,
bad shit.
But I don't think he's dumb.
No.
But I don't know. Kalam is he's just a different animal, I guess. I don't know.
Do you think that Cord just purposely annoyed him so that he would take over?
I don't know. I had not thought about that possibility.
Because I got the sense that nobody wanted to take command. But I could have been wrong. I could be wrong on that.
I don't remember feeling that way. But maybe you are right on that. I don't know.
Definitely interesting, though. But, I mean, Kalam essentially sends them away anyway, so
Yeah,
Who's really in
Well-
charge now, you know?
right. So Kalam, he pushes, he ties a big rock to this rope, and I had a hard time visualizing this whole thing, like how far down it must be. And so when it says he pushed the rock over the edge, but as it fell, it stopped short of the figure, but it must be close. I don't really know, like, is the rock in the water at that point, or is it just above it? I wasn't really sure. I don't think it really matters, I guess. But
No. From what I understand, based on the next section, or one of the sections after, the ledge that the figure is on is above the river.
you didn't think this thing was underwater?
No.
But it says it shot Kalam out like a geyser out of the water. The current didn't have time to like pull him downstream.
Yeah, I think that the hand came out of the water and grabbed the stone, but the figure itself I don't think is in the water.
How would it not be?
Based on one of the later sections. I don't want to reveal too much.
Okay. Interesting. Like, I thought this thing has just been underwater.
No. Well, does it stay in the water?
I guess I don't remember specifically from the book, but they also talk about, like, why would they say to stop drinking from the well if it wasn't in the water, though?
Because Kalam stabbed the demon and is bleeding into the water.
Somebody's got to settle this for us. I don't know. Is it in the water or not? I don't know. Maybe you'll convince me in your later section here.
Yeah, I think maybe we'll just get to that.
Okay. I will keep an open mind.
All right. We'll put a pin in it.
All right. Ooh, that's the first time you've said that today.
Yeah, there we go. It's the first and only time.
You think so?
Probably.
All right.
Don't quote me on that.
Hold me to it.
Fuck.
When we get the description of this thing, it says, Kalam says he saw teeth with no lips and it speaks his mind. I just immediately thought of the mouth of Sauron from Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
So
I
that's all
envision
there.
that too. I can see that.
But that is all I've got on that section here.
I mean, these next sections are kind of related to each other because it's kind of like a one thing after another.
Continuation.
Yeah, continuation. There we go. Thank you. I know how to talk.
I'm sorry. Oh, spicy, Justin.
Oh, funny. All right. Okay. All right. So the next section here. Kalam's muscles ached from his collision with the ceiling. Cord had left and then returned with the others. It was hard to separate the daggers from his hands, and when they did, the insides of his hands were scorched. Ebron muttered that it happened because of the cold, and asked Kalam what it had looked like. Kalam, taking the blanket that Sin had brought, explained that it looked as if it had been dead a long time ago. Kalam asked Ebron what he knew about the fortress that was Bridy's. Ebron said that he didn't know much because he was raised in Karakarang, but thinks that it used to be a monastery. Kalam said that this was correct, from a cult long extinct. As a healer was applying a salve to Kalam's burned hands, he tells Ebron that the Tano cult claims a direct descent from the cult of the Nameless Ones. The Spirit Walkers say that their powers of song arose from the original patterns that the Nameless Ones used in their rituals. Those powers spread across the continent and so remain today. Ebron said that if this monastery belonged to the Nameless Ones, then were they demons? Kalam said no, they weren't demons, but they were in the habit of chaining them. And the one down in the well, or pool, it was probably displeased, but not as displeased as one might think. Ebron puts it together that if someone drinks its spilled blood then, Kalam continues and explains that the demon would take their soul in exchange for freedom. Ebron whispered that it would come looking for them. Ebron turned to Cord and said that they needed to get the fuck out of there. Kalam said that this was true and that they better get as far away from him as they can. He tells them to join Adjik Tabor in Erin, and she could use the Ashok regiment for help. They said their goodbyes and told Cord to leave his supplies, as he'll just rest there a moment longer. Cord, as he was leaving, asked Kalam if the demon had got the captain and the lieutenant. Kalam replied that the demon had said that they had escaped him. A moment later, Kalam was alone. He thought to himself that it was too bad that the Aslan demon had vanished.
See, but there it says in the pool.
The demon is in the pool. I will agree with you there. The demon is in the water, but the shiny figure I don't think is.
So you okay, I guess I never thought that they were two separate things.
Yes. I think they're two separate things.
I thought the demon was like in that thing. It was stuck in the armored person thing.
Maybe. I mean, I guess it's possible, but I think it's just one of those things where we don't really know how possession works, really.
It is 9/10 of the law.
Yeah. The only really thoughts that I had are around the Tano cult, and Klam said that the monastery was used by the Nameless Ones, a cult long extinct. And I'm like, a cult the Seven Faces in the Rock started or had a part in, potentially? And then the other thought is, the song arose from original patterns that the Nameless One used in their rituals. Well, I feel like this explains the reason why their power is elliptical, right? Rituals have like an opening and a closing, right? Like it's a tradition. It's kind of the same process over and over and over again, right? So I think that is how the sorcery is elliptical.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, because the Tano cult claims a direct descent from the cult of the Nameless Ones. So I think it was actually chapter 10 when I was drunk. Didn't I say something like this? I feel like I could have said that, like, the Tano were the Nameless Ones or something like that.
You might have. I don't remember, I guess.
I just edited this episode, but I was so embarrassed at my performance that I was just trying to make it not sound like I sucked. So
I'm really looking forward to hearing it again.
all right.
Because I'm sure it'll probably sound different to me as I listen to it compared to as it took place in real time,
Yeah, I thought I did much better than I did. But, I feel like that's probably beer glasses in itself a description. The essence of beer glasses, beer goggles or whatever. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, those were my only thoughts. And again, I feel like these next 4 sections are kind of one long one, just kind of cut up into like different sections. So I feel like we could probably touch base with other sections as we move on.
Sure. I don't think I have anything to add on to yours there. So yeah. It was nearly dark when Kalam emerged from the rock opposite of the cliff that was the secret escape route. The timing sucked, and the demon might already be free, hunting him in some unknown form. The night ahead was bound to be a rough one. Kalam could see the company had left about 4 hours prior to him, heading southwest. He grabbed his pack and went due west. He avoided rises as to not make himself visible along the skyline. Kalam heard a scream to the north and froze. It was an Enkeral. They were rare in these parts, and he wasn't overly worried, unless the damn thing had drank from a bloody pool of water recently, he thought. There was no wind that Kalam could tell, and he knew sound traveled well on nights such as these, and that reptiles could detect motion from high above. He would make a good snack. Kalam faced south to where the whirlwind's solid wall of whirling sand was 3,000 to 4,000 paces away. He tightened his pack and grabbed his knives. His hand was still in pain from the cold burn. He set off down the slope, moving as fast as he dared. Soon he was in Rariku's basin and began jogging towards the wall of the whirlwind. The supplies were slowing him down, but Kalam knew he would be dead without them. He had gone 1,000 paces, and he could hear his breathing become harder. Roughly 2,000 paces left, as far as Kalam could tell, and the sound was ferocious as the wind whipped about. He could feel the rage of the goddess. 1,500 paces to go. Suddenly, it was quiet, as if Kalam was in a cave, but he was cartwheeling through the air. His supplies from his back scattered as he landed on his back. His ears were attacked by a noise he had never heard before. He was covered in blood, his chain armor in tatters after the Enkeral's talons gotten hold of him. For all this damage the creature did, it would have had an easier time just taking his head off. Kalam heard a familiar voice inside his head. I could have killed you outright, but this pleases me more. Run, mortal, to that saving wall of sand. Kalam said he had freed the demon, and this was the thanks he got. In his mind, he heard, "You delivered pain. Unacceptable. I am not one to feel pain. I only deliver it." Kalam said he would go to Hood's Gate, happy, knowing the demon would not be in this new world long. Shit, I scrolled too far. Thank you. Kalam said he would go to Hood's Gate happy, knowing the demon would not be in this new world long with that attitude, and said he would wait on the other side of Hood's Gate. The demon snatched Kalam with his talons and threw Kalam through the air. He fell from a height of what he estimated to be 15 to 20 feet when he hit the ground and everything went black. When Kalam regained consciousness, he was in a puddle of his blood and the night sky above him. The demon asked if he was ready to keep playing their game. Kalam said he could do as he pleased, but he wasn't much of a plaything anymore since his back was broken. Kalam couldn't move. The demon said he shouldn't have landed on his head. Kalam apologized and told the demon to come finish the job. The demon wanted to know his name first, his first victim's name in thousands of years. Kalam told the demon his name, Kalam Makar. The demon wanted to know what kind of creature he was. He kind of looked like an animus to him. Kalam said he was in prison long before the Nameless Ones then. The demon said he knew nothing of these Nameless Ones. Kalam could sense the Enkaral next to him. He kept his eyes shut but could feel its breath on him, its jaws opening wide. Kalam rolled over and drove his fist down its throat, and the other hand drove a dagger into its chest. His head jerked back and Kalam got to his feet, but that motion caused him to lose all feeling in his legs, and he fell back down. In that process, he saw one of his knives about 15 paces away on the ground. The Enkaral was thrashing about. The feeling in Kalam's legs was coming back, and he crawled away towards the knife. The serpent blade, Kalam thought, which was appropriate. The Enkaral had jumped and landed right where Kalam had been moments before. Blood fell from its eyes as panic took over the demon once more. Blood poured from its mouth. Kalam kept dragging himself towards the knife. He picked it up and told the demon he had something for it. An old friend that has come to say hello. The demon heaved onto its side. Kalam climbed onto its head and told the demon to remember his name, the one who got stuck in its throat, and drove the blade through the demon's thick skin. Kalam rolled away, avoiding the deadly fountain of blood. Kalam went end over end 3 times, landing on his back. The paralysis, fuck that word today, taking over again.
Paralysis.
He stared at the stars. What's that?
Paralysis.
Paralysis. Thank you. Wasn't working in my head. He stared at the stars until the darkness took them.
Glad I could assist then.
That was a hard word today.
It's okay. It's better than Belfry, right?
Belfry.
Belfry.
Yeah. So a couple thoughts here. I'm in the book. It said Kalam fell from a height of it, at least 3 times Kalam's height. So I'm going to assume he's probably 6 foot, give or take. So 15, 20 feet, somewhere in that range is probably what he fell, which is a pretty good distance to fall. Like I wouldn't want to fall that far into my
It's almost like it would cause his legs to do what?
break.
Be paralyzed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can say paralyzed.
Yeah. Okay. No worries. Just fucking.
Yeah. I didn't make any note of this, but I do like Kalam just kind of clapping back at this demon. It just feels very Kalam like, he's like, I've got something for you. Say hello to my little friend.
Right.
He stabs it in the face.
Such a Kalam thing to do.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it would be very unlike his character to not have like a response.
Yeah, some sort of smart ass comment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably need your help with this. So Kalam calls this, the serpent blade an old friend come back to say hello.
Mm-hmm.
How are those two tied together? What am I not remembering? What am I missing?
Because the demon has possessed an Enkaral, which is a reptile. Yeah. So that's my best guess. However, there could easily very well be something deeper, right? Because where did he get the snake knife?
This is the one he got that he was looking at from the merchant or whatever a few chapters back, right?
Yeah, that he bought that was invested by...
It was Otadriel, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't Otataro. It was
I thought one of
invested
them was.
with some elder sorcery or something like that. I don't
But
think
one
it
of them was
really.
Otadero.
No,
I'm pretty sure one of the knives was.
no, it was just elder sorcery.
Might look back.
I mean, we can do it right now. I've got the drive open. It was chapter 9. With
How do you remember these chapters? It blows my mind.
I don't know, dude. I just like this is just how it happens.
I could have swore one of them was.
The knife was larger and made Kalam think that it would be Fen or Thieleman Toblakai. Worse, he knew whose mark it was, therefore knew the man that had invested the weapon. Oh, you're right. It is an Ototero blade.
Ah! I told you so.
Right, yeah, because Sin later on that chapter is like, oh, keep that away from me. You're right. You're right. But I
Once
don't
in a
think,
while. It doesn't happen often.
yeah.
Oh, you agree.
But I mean, he reveals that it was simple and it was done with elder magic. So we're both right.
That's fine.
Yeah.
We can both be right. There's nothing wrong with that.
I mean, again, he got it from someone who apparently stole it from a dead soldier, a Wiccan in the chain of dogs, and then somehow this merchant has come across it. It could be deeper. It could not be. It could just be as simple as like snake knife killing another reptile.
Sure.
That's where my thought immediately goes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
My last thought here, just, Kalam rolls away from a deadly fountain of blood. It wasn't exactly how it was worded in the chapter, but that was kind of what I interpreted it as, because in the book it says he narrowly avoided the deadly fount. And so, like, when I read that, I was like, okay, well, he stabbed this thing, and I imagine it must be, kind of like, when the Aslan pisses all over, things start on fire. Why couldn't blood be dangerous too? So that's kind of how I interpreted that. I don't know what you thought. If you had any thoughts at all on that.
I mean, fount, just a source of a desirable quality or commodity. That's what it means. So, I don't know. I would imagine that the blood is a commonality or a commodity. I mean, it's essential to live. So maybe that's just maybe that's what he was implying is kind of what you are deterring or interpreting, I should say.
Probably not a huge deal either way, but
No,
that's just kind of what I thought.
Small detail. Have you had any thoughts as to why the Aslan is no longer there?
I mean, I think we find out here in a few sections.
Do we?
It went and found Pust.
Oh, I missed that.
Oh,
okay. All right then. Fair enough. I thought it was just scared of the demon, so I thought that's why it had left.
Oh, gotcha.
Maybe both are true. I don't know.
Could be.
I don't know how I missed that. But,
well, I mean, it was a pretty long chapter, and there's a lot that happened.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. I'm allowed to miss a few here and there, and I'm sure I've missed a shit tons.
Absolutely. Yeah, dude, we're not going to catch everything.
No. All right, you ready to find out about your river question?
Sure. We're not going to get drunk, Derek, but Derek is drinking a beer.
Drunk Jack.
5 o'clock in the middle of the ocean. Looks like you're having a rice cracker or something.
Yeah, I love these things. I don't know why. Everybody thinks they're terrible, but I like them.
Nothing wrong with them.
All right. We ready?
Ready.
Inside the ancient monastery, used by the Nameless Ones, was an underground chamber situated above the flowing river. In those icy depths, chained by elder sorcery to the rocks, lay a Thieleman Toblakai. The Toblakai was pure of blood and had known the curse of demonic possession. The possession had gone on for so long that the warrior had forgotten all about his noble self. As of now, the body contorted and twisted in its magical chains. The demon left with the outpouring of its blood, swept to freedom to a distant watering hole where a long bull and corral crouches to drink. The scent of others could be nowhere to be found. Though it didn't understand that passage of time, it had been a long time since it had seen one of its own. It had been fated to never mate. and with its death would mark the extinction of the Enkaral east of the Jag Odin. Now its soul raged inside its body. No scent of prey, no thundering of hearts or flight of wings. Something held it down, an imprisonment proving a path to madness, rage and terror, unanswered except by the promise of eternity, and that it would remain that way had the beast hold remained unoccupied. Had the wolf's god known of the urgent need for a companion or a champion. The wolf god's presence visited the creature's soul and consoled it with visions of battling other Enkaral and mating with females. Visions that brought peace to the ensnared soul, though it came with deep sorrow as the body that now clothed it felt wrong. Beasts were not strangers to hope, nor mindful of such things as rewards. Besides, this champion would taste blood, and soon. For the moment, though, a sorceress bind was becoming loose and unraveling. So that's where you get your answer.
Answer for what? This whole thing just felt like bizarre to me. Obviously, like this takes place like in the past.
No, the Tobakai is the silver at the bottom of the well.
Yeah.
And he's chained to an underground chamber situated above the flowing water.
I don't know, dude. I don't know why, like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
What's not making sense?
Well, this thing, like, it pulled Kalam into the water, though.
Right. The demon is in the water, but the Thelum and Tobakai is chained to what I imagined like a platform just above the water.
So what is this? What is the demon in the water?
Nothing. He's just in the water.
So it just exists in this entire expanse of this river?
Yeah, I would say that like the demon has possessed the Thelum and Tobakai, but like it's not limited to its body, right? Like it's a demon. It can possess and unpossess as it pleases, right?
So why is it stuck there? If it could just float further down the river, why didn't it do that?
Because of its blood. His blood was spilt. And if you caught it in one of the earlier sections, I think section 5, when Kalam is talking to Ebron, it says that the Nameless Ones had a habit of chaining demons. So
I remember that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
I think that's what's happening is Kalam unintentionally freed it from
what, though?
the Thelum and Tobakai.
I just cannot get it out of my head that this thing, I feel like the Tobakai was underwater. And who is this Tobakai also?
I don't know. I don't think it's Karza.
No, I definitely don't think so either.
But
I don't know. Too many questions here, not enough answers.
that's fair. Well, community, do your thing.
Explain it to me like I'm stupid, because I am.
You're not stupid.
I got like a total different interpretation than you did, but
Yeah, I think that like the Nameless Ones, the order of I guess things is unclear, but I don't know if they captured the possessed Tobakai and then just chained it down there, or if the chained Tobakai is just like a toy for the demon to possess and unpossess, or if like that is how it's able to, because like if the physical body of the Tobakai is chained with elder sorcery, then that would tell me that the demon, it doesn't have the ability to control its movements, right? So therefore there has to be a way for the demon to exist outside of that body. But I don't think that like it can leave the monastery because of whatever sorcery is binding it there.
I guess I think the biggest thing is just like when I read this, I never got the sense that they were two distinct, different things. They were just both one entity, I guess. You know, two entities forced into one.
Maybe. I mean, that could be right. I guess I just, well,
That's what I took out of it.
that's fair. It's such a small thing that it doesn't even really matter. It's really just a matter of semantics. I guess my first thought about this section here is the ancient monastery. It was said that it was ancient even to the Nameless Ones that had inhabited it at the time. So by that standpoint, it was already ancient. So that's kind of cool, just to get that little bit of an extension of its history, so to speak. And then this whole part, chained by elder sorcery to the rocks, lay Thelum and Toblakai. And like we've already talked about, I'm not really sure what to make of this. Outside of this, must be who Kalam and them were seeing, the shiny object in the well. You and I differ on that, but that's just kind of how I'm interpreting it. Yes, this section was very, very, very extremely confusing. Even when I was summarizing it, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Because it goes from talking about the Thelum and Toblakai, and then the Thelum and Toblakai is talking about the blood allowing the demon to be swept to freedom. And then it just kind of switches from the chained Thelamon's thoughts or expressions to that of the soul of the Enkaral. And basically what it's saying is that it is the last of its kind east of the Jagodin. So it hasn't had sex. It's never fought against anybody. It doesn't even know what the smell of another Enkaral smells like. Is what like the middle of this section is really saying. And then what it's saying here at the end is that if the beast hold hadn't been reopened or reawakened, then his soul would have basically like lingered in purgatory forever. But the beast throne, the wolf goddess and goddess have accepted his soul, and now he's with the Enkaral, other Enkaral, is basically what it's saying. The only thing that I'm a little confused about was this like visions that brought peace to the ensnared soul, though it came with deep sorrow as the body that now clothed it felt wrong. And I'm like, is this hinting at something soul taken? This part had me like really confused. This whole section was kind of odd in my opinion, and I'm not sure this section, but I'm sure that like maybe this section will make sense in due time.
It was confusing.
Yeah.
Maybe more so for me than you, but
it's whatever. It's cool. We'll get clarification eventually. I mean, that I feel like we've learned. So, and then the last thing, a sorcerer's bind was becoming loose and unraveling. And I feel like this means that whatever Toblakai down there is becoming free. And I kind of wonder if Karza will meet up with it somewhere.
That would be interesting.
Because it said east of the Jag Odin. So from what I understand is that Karza is seeking out the Jag Odin, but he's probably coming from the west towards the east. So maybe he'll run into him.
Maybe.
But
be kind of a neat encounter.
Yeah, that's kind of my initial thoughts on that very weird section. But I think Erickson was just trying to tell us that there's some humanity to beasts.
Sure. Yeah, I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
Ready for my next section here?
Sure.
I thought this was my long one, but I think my last section's my long one. So, all right. A shadow slid over Kalam's face, awakening him. His limbs hurt like hell, but his heart was still beating. An old man hovered above him, appearing to be Dal Haniz. The man said he was looking for Kalam. Where had he been, and why was he laying around? Didn't he know it was hot out? Kalam questioned him. Looking for him? Nobody was looking for Kalam, at least not anymore. The man replied, calling him an idiot, a heat-addled fool, stupid. Well, maybe he should be encouraging him. Did Kalam kill that Enkaral? That is impressive, but it stinks. Nothing worse than a rotting carcass, except that Kalam had pooped his pants. Luckily, his pissing friend had found him and led him here. Oh, and his friend had marked the Enkaral, sizzling hide. And Kalam's friend would carry him back to his spooky abode. Kalam asked who in Hood's name he was dealing with. The man was shocked Kalam didn't know him. He was, of course, the most devout servant to Shadow, high priest, highest archpriest, Iskril Poost, god to the Bakarala, bane of spiders, master deceiver of all the world's soul-taken and divers, and most recently, Kalam's savior. Provided Kalam had something for him, of course. A bone whistle? Perhaps a small bag given to him in a shadowy realm by an even shadowier god. A bag, you fool, filled with dusky diamonds. Kalam said yes, he had the diamonds and tried to sit up and get them. But he passed back out and saw the Aslan demon behind Poost. I was really excited when I read this part of the chapter, because it's like, this has got to be Poost. And we don't, you don't get his name right away. Like, just the way this guy's talking, like, it has to be.
Oh, yeah. I felt the same way. I was so damn excited.
I was too, yeah. So, yeah, that was exciting to get him back. I
think you even sent me just a text after you read it that said, or after I told you I'd read it, that was like, Poost!
Yeah, I did. I was excited about that. Yeah, it was, just the way he talked, I knew it had to be him, and I missed him. And I love how he just gives himself these, like, self-stylized nicknames. The way he thinks he's, like, he's speaking out loud, but I think he thinks he's talking in his mind, just like self-talk, but he's not.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me.
Yeah, he's thinking out loud, like literally.
Literally, yeah. Yeah, and it's really fun to read that. It's just good comic relief. And I mean, we've seen, these books, they can be pretty dark and harrowing, I suppose. So it's nice to have those, even if it's just a sentence or two to lighten the mood a little bit. Like, that's huge.
Yeah, I would agree. It's good to have him back. I hope this isn't it.
I don't know how prevalent he'll be going forward, but I think he'll kind of be around.
Well, I mean, again, I go back to like the Admiral Noct story at the very beginning of the book, chapter 5 or whatever it was. If Iskerl Poost is like this devoted to Shadow Throne, he's got to be someone from the family. He's got to be one of those characters that helped Kellanved in some way, shape, or form.
Maybe. I don't know.
Just don't know who.
Stick a pin in it, Justin.
I'm not saying it.
I did. You got lucky. I did.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else on that section. Just, I wonder what Poost is going to want to do with the diamonds, because obviously he knows he needs a whistle for them. Is he going to blow it hard so they all activate and he's got demons running around all over the place? Or is he going to... I don't know what he's going to do.
Oh, no, I don't know. I missed a point. Yes, or in my last section. They were talking about the wolf gods had known the need of an urgent need for a champion. And I'm wondering if you think that like that might be Tok or Annister or someone else.
I guess I was thinking about it in terms of characters for this book.
So
I don't know.
Oh, well. All right. I just wanted to make sure that I talked about it. All right.
Oh, you're good, man.
Yeah, no, I guess I don't really have anything. Oh, I thought it was funny that the Encaral got pissed on by the Aslan.
Gross.
Yeah. Like that's what that meant. So, but yeah, no, I'm ready to move on if you are.
Yeah, go ahead.
When he awoke once more, he was laying on an altar. Healing salves had been applied, along with sorcery. As he was feeling better, the assassin sat up, checking out the healed wounds left by the Encaral. A jug of water and a cup lay on a mat on the stone floor. Kalam went to grab it, and as he was filling up the cup, a bloom of shadows caught his eye. He was not surprised to see Poost there when the shadows finally settled. The priest tiptoed to Kalam and whispered if all was better. Kalam asked why they were whispering. Poost said to be quiet as his wife would hear him. Kalam was confused and asked if she was sleeping or something. Poost explained that his wife didn't sleep, but rather she was hunting. Kalam, I imagine still confused, asked what it was she hunted. Poost replied that it wasn't what she hunted, but who, and she hunted him. Poost gets excited and admits that they haven't seen each other in months, and that it's been a perfect marriage. Kalam went to pour himself another glass of water and told Poost that he needed to eat. When he turned back around, Poost was gone. A woman was heard entering the room and asking where he had gone. Kalam told her straight up that he was hungry and he needed to eat. She snapped and said if she looked appetizing or something, and began searching the room, explaining that she knows every room and every hiding place, because why not? When she veered, she was everywhere. Kalam asks why she just didn't veer again. Mogora said that Poost would like that, and if she did, she would be the one hunted again. She wouldn't do that. She scurried from the room saying that she would find him. Kalam sighed, hoping that with luck his visit with these two wackos would be short. His girl Poost whispered into his ear that that was a close call.
I really like how he just appeared at like Kalam's side and just right in his ear. That was close.
Yeah, exactly. My first thought here is Poost gets excited and admits that they haven't seen each other in months and that this was a perfect marriage. One, funny, some good comic release, very Poostish, right? But I also know Mogora shows up at the end of Dead House Gates. But I kind of wish that we would have gotten a little bit more of these antics between the two. I hope that maybe there's some more to come, but maybe not. I don't know. It was funny to me.
It was funny.
The next thought is when she's explaining that she knows every room and every hiding place because when she veered, she was everywhere. And this explains Poost's fascination with spiders in Dead House Gates. Always eccentric about if they saw spiders to be rid of them, right? Like he was always telling his girl Poost, or not, he was always telling Mappo and Acarium that if they saw spiders to get rid of them.
Right. Yeah.
So Mogora has been around Poost's thing this whole time. Lastly,
Just hanging out.
right. Lastly, hoping that with luck, when he whispered into his ear, I said that was creepy. So
It was.
yeah,
I'm sure Kalam wasn't expecting that.
it was very. I would imagine Kalam feeling very uncomfortable at that.
Yeah. All right.
Moving on.
Moving on. My long one here. Onrak's face was held together with scotch tape and prayers. If he had anything resembling a normal eye, it would have been removed by the Tisleosian scimitar. This didn't affect his actual eyesight, as all his senses existed in the ghostly fire of the Telan ritual, the unseen aura surrounding his mangled body with memories of being whole. With his left arm being cut off, it created an odd sense of conflict as the wound bled in the physical world and the world of the ritual. He watched his kin prepare for the ritual. He was outside of them now, unable to join his spirit with theirs. He saw only their physicality now, no longer their ghost shapes. Onrak thought they were withered corpses, a mockery of all that was once noble. The Talanimus were living duty and courage. That's all they had been for hundreds of thousands of years, and now these virtues were turning into empty words. When Onrak looked at those who used to be his kin, he believed he finally saw what those who were not Imus saw when looking at them. He thought this is how he was seen, may still be seen, by Troll Sengar, by the Tisleosian. He didn't know how or what he should feel. For that matter, he didn't know when feelings even mattered anymore. Troll was next to Onrak and spoke, saying if he was anyone else, he would think Onrak was being lost in his thoughts. Perhaps his kind were great thinkers, solvers of great mysteries, possessing all the right answers. All he, Troll, needed to do was pose the correct question. As thankful as he was for Onrak's companionship, he did find him quite frustrating. Onrak agreed. They were frustrating. Troll continued, saying his kin were going to dismantle Onrak once they made it back home. If Troll were him, he'd be running for the hills. Flee, Onrak said. That's what the renegades did. And now they hunt them, and now Onrak understands them. Troll said they did more than flee. They found someone or something else to give their allegiance, which was something not afforded to Onrak right now, unless he chose to serve the Leosian. Onrak said, or he could serve him or Troll. Troll said he was funny. Onrak said Monarch Ochum would view this as the same crime as the renegades. The Imus were almost done with their preparations. The Bonecaster had made a circle 20 paces wide, then scattered seeds and a dust cloud of spores within the ring, while Ibra Golan and two other warriors made a sightstone out of a piece of demolished building. though they were making constant adjustments with the two suns overhead. Troll said that must not be easy. He figured he would get to keep his blood a little while longer. Anrak looked to him and said Troll was the one who should be running away. Troll replied saying Anrak's bonecaster said it should only take a drop or two of his blood. Anrak said, if everything went according to plan. Troll thought there was no reason it shouldn't go according to plan. Anrak said the Imperial Warren was Karald Tirlin. I don't know. Somebody tell us how to say that fucking word. And Seneschal Jorud isn't a sorcerer. He is a warrior priest. Troll said it was the same for the Teist Edur. Anrak cut him off and said the Seneschal must kneel before his power. Troll's approach was fraught. He assumed a benign spirit gives him, Troll, that power. But if that spirit is usurped, he may not even know it, and then you become a tool, manipulated for an unknown purpose. Anrak watched Troll as the life seemed to flee in his eyes. Anrak thought to himself that he had given an answer to a question Troll hadn't even asked yet, so he wasn't all-knowing. Anrak said the spirit that grants the Seneschal his power could be corrupted, but there's no way to know until it is unleashed. Even then, the spirits are good at hiding. The one named Osric, or Osric, as the humans call him, is lost. Anrak did not know the source of Monarch's knowledge, so he doubted that Osric was behind the Seneschal's power, but probably something else using Osric's name and image to fool the Leotian. Anrak continued, saying the Leotian spoke of their own hunt, trespassers who crossed the Leotian Warren. But these were not the same as the Teist that the Teist were looking for. Krald Thirlin is not a sealed warren and is close to Talan, which even draws from it. Fire is life, and life is fire. Fire is the war against the cold, their salvation. Bonecasters, and others probably as well, have used Krald Thirlin as well because no one even know the Teist Leotian existed. Monarch now thinks on this. Where are these Leotian from? How distant and remote is their home? What does the one disguised as Osric want? Troll told him to stop. He needed to think. Anrak said he would go back to being quiet. Monarch had figured out the pattern of the suns and moons in the sky, and the world was swimming with shadows. The hounds that Anrak had accidentally freed cast dozens of shadows, and Troll wondered where these beasts went. He was pretty sure they were not in this realm, and they were unusual, as if each was shaped with two distinct powers, two aspects chained together. He thought that Anrak had freed them, but reconsidered. Shadow from dark, that which is cast from that which has cast it. He looked down at his own multiple shadows. Troll wondered if he was their master and they his slaves. Troll thought, silent kin of mine, you precede, you follow, you strive on my flanks, huddled beneath me. Your world finds its shape from my bone and flesh, yet your breadth and length belong to light. You are the bridge between worlds, yet you cannot be walked. Troll thought there was no substance in that thought, only perception. Monarch spoke to Anrak, saying he was close to them and he would like to know his thoughts. Anrak said they were insubstantial. Monarch didn't care. Anrak was silent for a few moments and then spoke, saying he was bound to their path. Monarch said he was severed. Anrak continued and said they must find the renegades. The renegades are their shadow, but he now stands between them, so he can guide them. Anrak knew where to look. He knew the signs to watch for. Anrak said if they destroyed him, they would lose this advantage in their hunt. Monarch asked if he then bargained for persistence, which Anrak said yes. Monarch wanted to know the path these renegades took. Anrak said he would tell them when it became relevant. Monarch didn't like this answer and returned to the circle. A dozen paces away stood the Teist Leotian. Their armor appeared to glow with the light behind them. Monarch told the Leotian they were now ready. Troll asked where he should start spraying his blood everywhere, and who was the lucky one who got to cut him. Monarch said it was up to Troll. Troll said he wanted Onrak to do it because he was the only one he trusted. Seneschal Jorud said it should be him who does it, as it is blood that lays at the heart of Osric's power. Plus, he would need to spill some of his own blood too. Troll said it was Onrak, or no one, as he held some Moranth munitions in his hand. Anias asked for permission from the Seneschal to kill Troll. That way they would have no shortage of Edur blood. Troll said if he tried, then he could guarantee the same thing in regards to the Leosian blood. Monarch told the Seneschal to agree to the terms and begin his prayers. The Seneschal said it was not up to Monarch to make such commands. The Edur had much to learn. They would make the gate, but then after there would be a reckoning. The link between the Seneschal and his god was powerful and quick. The other 3 Leosian went back to their camp to pack. Monarch went to the circle with the 2 others, faced Onrak, and told him to guard his friend close if he wants him to survive. Hold to that singular purpose, no matter what he may witness. Troll said he would. Onrak told him to follow him. They needed to wait in the circle. The other 3 Leosians had finished packing camp and were loading up the horses. The fires kept flickering on the sides of Troll's vision, but they didn't pose a threat. And he could feel a Leosian god approaching, or at least the outside disguise of the god, which would have to come to the edge of this realm. Once the Seneschal offered up his blood, then the bridge between the two would be complete. Onrak told Troll when he was instructed he would need to cut himself. A few drops would be good enough. Troll said he thought Onrak was going to do it, but Onrak told him he would not be distracted at the moment of the crossing. Troll didn't understand, and Onrak told him to mind his business. Troll took the stone blade. Troll wondered what this god would look like. Troll thought that spilling blood was a deadly game, as they were about to see. Jorud cried out. Flames rose up as he cut his left palm. The air smelled of a spring thaw. Onrak told Troll the time was now. Troll cut his hand and was surprised when it appeared deeper than he expected it to be. The blood followed. The gate tore itself open and surrounded the group within the circle. Tunnels sprawled out from within the gate, seeming to touch forever. Blood was flying out of Troll as if he were being squeezed. Onrak caught him. Onrak looked and saw Monarch and the others as they went down the tunnel of fire. The Seneschal's warriors raced to him. Onrak told Troll to hang on to him with his left hand. He held on. The blood on Onrak burned, and he almost let go. He told Troll that he was once of the Logros, but now he is a stranger to the ritual. He now pledges to defend Troll's life, and that vow cannot be broken. He told Troll to lead them, and then plunged into the tunnel. Onrak saw the Bonecaster ahead of them turn around, but the distance was too far. The ritual had started to tear itself apart. Monarch had veered into his soul-taken form. Onrak tried to break his grip with Troll to draw his sword, protecting Troll, allowing him to escape. But Troll would not let go, and Onrak stumbled. Monarch's form was a giant ape that looked like death, but it was swallowed by a surge of chaos. Onrak tripped, breaking his grip with Troll, who was on his knees with a white scar where his hand had been cut. There was now only a single sun. Onrak knew they were back in the correct realm, but they needed to leave now. They would be pursued, even if it was only Monarch left. Troll asked where the others went. Onrak said they didn't realize that the turning of Talan had driven the awareness away from the Seneschal, and the other Talan Imus had walked into Krald Thirlin to kill the Leosian god.
Nice. I think it's Tierlin or Thirlin.
Sure.
Tierlin?
Tierlin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or Tierland.
I'm good with that.
Well, what you got for us, buddy? This is probably just as impactful as the first 3 sections.
Yeah.
Littered with tons of stuff.
Oh, again, this wasn't something I don't think I picked up on my first read through. It was probably more when I was summarizing it, but I think I've got a couple comments here in regards to this. But as I was summarizing things, I kind of put together that at least like if one Imus is looking at another one, they don't see each other as like skeletal or whatever you want to call it. And that was kind of surprising to me. I hadn't thought that they might see each other as like whole or as how they like used to look.
Yeah. It was pretty cool.
It
Yeah.
was cool. And I don't want to say like I feel like dumb for not thinking about that, but I almost feel like, well, that was kind of rude of me to like just assume that they saw each other as skeletons or whatever.
Why would you say that's rude?
Just because it was just an assumption that was wrong. I don't know.
But I mean, you're not part of the ritual, so you should see them as corpses.
Yeah. But like there was no reason for me to really like assume anything else.
Yeah. It's just a nice little like accentuation on to the world building around the Talan.
Yeah, but it changes things like going forward and even looking back now. So I don't know, just neat.
Like when other like interactions where other Talan are talking to each other, you know that like they see them as they were before the ritual.
I think like I'm thinking a lot about like Tool when he popped out of the ground in Gardens and stabbed that dude in the like
And then
the crotch, right? Yeah. Like if there was another Tlan Imus there, like it would just look like a person clawing its way out of the ground, like a zombie, just like a regular dude, just like popping out of the ground with a sword, not a skeleton.
You can't do that?
No, I mean I wish I could.
That would be cool. Yeah, no more cars ever. Just pop out of the ground wherever you need to.
Right.
That's funny. Yeah, good catch. That was not something that even I had thought of until you said something. So,
oh, really?
But like I can see where you're coming from and totally agree.
Yeah, I was just surprised. So on my next thought here, Onrak is talking to Troll and he cuts him off and said the Seneschal must kneel before his power. And so I guess I'm just like, who is this his he is referring to?
He's talking about Seneschal Jorud and this imposter. Because what they're saying is that Jorud isn't a sorcerer, so he doesn't control power. Basically, power controls it or him, is basically. So, like, Jorud, as a worshiper, needs to kneel before Osric's power.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And then your next comment, Troll's approach was fraught. He assumed a benign spirit gifts him, the Seneschal, that power.
I'm not sure what to say. Sorry, man.
So basically, they're talking about Osric, right? And they're talking about the Tist Leosins. Basically, there are none of them that are mages, right? Like they're not controlling power, right? The power is controlling them, so therefore they need to kneel, right? They need the ones that need to acquiesce. They're saying is that the benign spirits gift Osric that power. But if the spirit is usurped, they may not even know that they've become a tool. So almost kind of similar to the Edur, right? Like they have been manipulated by someone based on what we have determined from the prologue on, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of funny that we've got shadow and we've got light almost kind of walking down the same path, no? Like they're in very similar situations.
Sure. Sorry. This whole part kind of confused me.
It is confusing. It is definitely confusing.
I appreciate your efforts in trying to explain it to me, but I don't know if I'm quite catching on.
I don't know if I understand it enough to explain it correctly. So I feel where you're coming from.
Gotcha.
Sorry, Dan.
No, you're good, man. You're good. This next comment here, you just went right for it, so that's fine. I would have just going to be asking for your help there anyways. And this deal with Osric, that's kind of like a mess too, right? Because this Osric that they think isn't the real Osric. So this I don't know, I want to know what this one is. Why is it an imposter? Why did it choose Osric?
Because from what I understand is Monarch Ochem had previously discovered that Osric was lost. Like the Talan, or at least not Onrak, but Monarch knows this as fact. So therefore, because Jarud and the Leosins are not, they can't control power because they are not sorceress. They're not mages. They can't tell the difference between an imposter and the real thing.
Okay, that makes sense.
So because Monarch had already determined that Osric is lost, Onrak suspects that this is the reason why this Osric is an imposter. But the Leosins didn't pick that up because they're not mages.
Do you have any thoughts as to who it could be?
I don't know. Yeah, that part I do not have any thoughts on. I don't know who it would be, but he's dead. So I don't know if it's that important.
What are you going to talk about here?
So they say that the Leo, so like similar to the Edur, right? The Amass. Similar to the Amass. Oh, maybe I did get that wrong then. So the Amass are looking for renegades. No, I did get that right. The Edur are being manipulated. And we also know, based on the fact that Osric is lost, that the Leosins, to an extent, may be being manipulated as well. But as far as the hunt for renegades, that is something that the Amass are doing, because we're fairly confident that it's the seven faces in the rock. But also, the Leosins saying that they spoke of a hunt of their own, trespassers who crossed the Leosin Warren. But we know that the Leosin Warren is of fire, right? And even the Talan draw upon it. So here's my thought, and this is what I was telling you about before we started. This is kind of my revelation, is I could have swore that when Felazin on the Solanda and Deadhouse Gates, they traveled through a Warren of Fire briefly in transition from the Minas to the real world. So I'm wondering if the Leosins, if that was the Warren they trespassed through, and now they're looking for her.
For what purpose, other than they just happen to go through there?
Yeah, because they're saying trespassers. I mean, again, the Leosins are all about purity, right? I would imagine that maybe they have a sense or a detection for people who are unpure. You know, I could see them being petty like that. So I would imagine just anybody not pure or anyone not Leosin, that's a crime. So now they must justify that. Like, it's small and stupid and makes absolutely no sense. But like, from the arrogance of what I'm gathering from the Leosin, that is within their realm of possibility.
Interesting.
But we can't deny that there are connections between almost everything that we read in here. And things are coming to a head of some kind as we progress through these books. I don't know.
We shall see.
Yeah.
I kind of like that thought with Felison. I don't know that I 100% believe it, but again, it's one of those where I wouldn't be surprised.
What?
If you were right.
Oh, if that's who they were trespassing.
Yeah. This fire is life and life is fire. I feel like we've heard that quote before, or something similar anyways.
Well, I think what you're thinking of is the stone comment that Damien so beautifully elaborated on.
That could be true.
Yeah, stone is stone.
Yeah.
But I guess I can't recall any specific incidents or situations where we've seen fire is life and life is fire.
This is, as I was summarizing, this is kind of where it was a little bit later, but I had missed that this was not Osric himself, but it's just someone being disguised as him. And that's kind of like where I was like, oh, okay. I did not catch that going before. So yeah, that's interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah. I'm curious. I'm with you. I'm curious as to like who this is, what it is. You know, I mean, they're almost setting up the Leosins to have the similar situation that the Edu are having. So I'm wondering if is it the same person or is it like two people from with the same idea? You know, there's so many ways that this could turn out.
Yeah. I had a really random thought where, Troll is wondering where the Hounds of Shadow went, and he's pretty sure they're not in this Nascent realm, and that how unusual they are, as if they were shaped with two distinct powers, two aspects chained together. Do you think that has anything to do with the multiple suns and like that light casting like multiple shadows?
Maybe. I think so, because like if you take light and dark, a shadow is essentially two distinct powers, two aspects chained together, right? But he's not talking about the Hounds of Shadow, he's talking about the Hounds of Darkness.
Sorry, you know what I meant.
Oh, okay. So you were talking about the Hounds of Shadow?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
Oh.
I thought maybe I just wrote the wrong thing down.
No. I mean, yeah, cast dozens of shadows, and Troll wondered where the beasts went. They were unusual, as if shaped by with two distinct powers, two aspects chained together. But if they're Hounds of Darkness, they should just exist without light, as we saw in the epigraph from Something
True.
Breeze. Maybe he is talking about the Hounds of Shadow then, because I don't know. That's a great question.
Or maybe it's nothing to do with it, but it was just something that like popped into my head. Like I wonder if somehow that's tied together, but it might not be, and that's fine.
I mean, I think it's interesting that it's a chained together, right? Like again, that's like a huge, big common theme in this book. But I mean, the only thing that applies to me is with Shadow, because Shadow can't exist without light, but it can't exist without darkness either. It can only exist when they're chained together.
Need a little bit of both.
Yep.
This thought Troll has about his own shadows. Silent kid of mine, you proceed, you follow, you strive on my flanks, huddle beneath me. Your world finds its shape from my bone and flesh, yet your breadth and length belong to light. You are the bridge between worlds, yet you cannot be walked. And he thinks that there's no substance in that, only perception. I disagree.
Well, I thought Onrak was thinking this.
I'm pretty sure it was Troll. Maybe I got it wrong, but whoever it was, I think there is substance to it and not just perception, because that's like all that stuff I think is accurate, I suppose. But to me, it was just thinking about the words that he was saying in the way that he said them. I just got a really neat visual out of that.
Yeah, it's kind of what I was talking about in the first section.
What were you talking about? Sorry.
I don't even remember now. But just I was talking about like the Andi. Oh, yeah, my theory about the Andi and the Leosins getting upset because Shadow is like an illegitimate birth or whatever.
Oh, okay.
So this is kind of where like I kind of got that, is whoever thought this, whether that was Troll or Onrak, is just kind of like noticing his own shadow and like coming up with these very obscure themes,
Gotcha.
That and like the way that they treat Troll just kind of makes me feel like the way that I feel. So
that is fair. I like this moment where Troll asks like when he should start spraying his blood everywhere and who is the lucky one who gets to cut him. Just his like humor, like it's a pretty serious moment and everything, right? And he just, the way he says it just kind of lightens the mood a little bit.
Yeah.
Like that's definitely my type of humor.
Yeah, no, that was definitely good. I didn't think of it like that, but now that you bring it up that way, it's chucky or worthy of a chuckle.
You got something to talk about here?
Yeah, this may not be true or not, and I don't even really care, but like what this does is this reminds me, blood that lays at the heart of Osric's power. Well, what do we know about the Elder Gods?
I'm not sure what you're looking for.
Blood sacrifices. So is it possible that whatever is disguising as Osric is an Elder God because it needs blood?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like from what I understand is that was the reason that they died out, is because they needed blood sacrifices in order to remain relevant.
Well, we don't have well, we do have a glossary here. I wonder if there's anything in there about it. Osric. Just Lord of the Sky.
That's all it says?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Lord of the Sky is what? The sun?
I suppose. It's the most dominating thing in the sky, I suppose.
Yep. So that was just my thought, is that like it just made me think of the Elder Gods. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that would be kind of cool.
Yeah. I think this is my last thought on the section here, but Monarch tells Anrak to guard his friend if he wants him to survive and to hold on to that singular purpose. And I read that and I instantly just thought that that word is super specific, and I wonder if Anrak will end up with Darist's sword guarding the throne of Shadow. Because Traveler said he would do it for a time, right? So maybe Anrak will take over for him. I don't know. It just seems too, I don't want to say convenient, but
Coincidental?
coincidental to use that word. And again, like we know he doesn't use words
Without purpose.
without purpose. Like, so I don't know. I'm gonna hold on to that, and I think we'll see that at some point. It would not shock me at all.
Well, do you think that? Well, I mean, we could tie the two together. I mean, we can deduce if this is going to happen or not, right? So the sword is either vengeance or grief.
Yes.
Those are those two singular wills, right? Do you think that Anrak has the capability for either of those purposes?
I feel like as a Tlan Imus, he would probably have more grief in him than vengeance.
I would agree. So yes, I think that you are probably right. That he will eventually come across the sword. So, but Traveler currently has the sword, right?
Yep.
So is that an altercation between the two? Or is that like I'm giving this to you willingly? You know?
That I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure which way I feel more strongly about on that.
Yeah, because we don't know really anything about Traveler.
No. But I don't even lean, it's really like a 50-50 for me, I think. You know, I'm not leaning heavily one way or the other that, you know, it'll be, they're going to fight, or it's going to be like, here, let me give this to you. It could go either way, I think.
Fair enough. But I think you're definitely onto something. I know I read that comment because I always get emails when you comment. So I'm like, that's fucking cool. So yeah.
I try not to read yours.
I can't help it. I see the emails and I'm like, ooh, boop.
Boop.
It's not like I remember all of your content by the time we get to recording. So
Sure. Yeah. No, I got you. Yeah, that's all I've got there. If you want to take your section here.
all right.
We're almost at the end here. We've done pretty good considering this chapter.
I would say so. Bones and scraps of armor to what had once been an army lay in the thick ash. The bones circled a slope pit of some kind, as if this army had been defending the entrance or seeking an inward escape. Lestara Yill stood in the ash watching Pearl rummage about the contents of the floor. She was thirsty, and every moment she spent in the Imperial Warren made her hate it more and more. Pearl stated that the sorcery never changed, and he has walked this path before, but there were no bones or ruins the first time he walked it. Bones and larger objects, like two tall leaning towers, had a way of making their way to the surface. Sand was like that, so why not ash as well? Lestara, getting impatient, told Pearl to find them a gate. Pearl said that the gods smiled down on them, and he had found a gate, a lively one at that. After a look from Lestara, Pearl revealed that it was at the bottom of the pit. Lestara pulled her scarf over her face and walked down the slope to the pit. Pearl followed and made comments about the courage and foolishness of her decision. She asked who these damn soldiers were anyway. In an elaborate way, Pearl said that he could only observe that they were human and that they had died after this realm had been created, and that they likely came out of the very gate they were entering. Lestara wondered who they came out to fight against. Pearl shrugged and said that he didn't know, but had his theories. Lestara snapped at this and went on a tirade about men hoarding information and then coming up with wild ideas, etc., etc. Pearl responded minimally, which Lestara gave him a glare. The glare didn't land as Pearl was studying something. They then came to the edge of the slope and looked down. Lestara made a comment about spiders in the desert making traps such as these. Pearl suggested that they were smaller in scale, though. She reached down and collected a thigh bone, then tossed it down the slope. They heard a thud, and the packed ash at their feet vanished, and down they went. They landed on another slope that tumbled them down with an avalanche filled with bones and bits of iron. It seemed unending, and Lestara could not take a breath. They then collided with what could have been a wood floor, broke through it, and down once more. She finally landed and was rolling across tiled stone. She came to a stop flat on her back. She reached out and felt nothing, and determined that she was on an edge. She thought to herself that she had taken this last descent, that it would conclude with Hood. Coughing a few paces to her right caused some rubble and bones to shift, giving her a slight nudge. She rolled to her side, tried to spit, and told Pearl to stay still and don't move. Pearl uses his Warren, and a dull sphere of light appears above them. It grew larger and got brighter, revealing all that was above them. She saw a wooden cross as tall as a 4-story building. Nailed to the cruciform was a dragon. Wings spread wide, hind legs impaled, chains wrapped about its neck. Pearl whispered that it wasn't here, as in the pit they had stumbled into, but rather inside of a pocket warren, a realm unto itself. Lestara suggested that it could be an entranceway ceiling. She was cut off by Pearl's admission that the power didn't reach them. Lestara asked why. In response, Pearl said that the dragon was aspected. Lestara interrupted and said that she thought all dragons were. Pearl explained that it wasn't aspected to a warren, but rather to Otaterel. This was an Otaterel dragon.
This, when I read this, I was just mind blown. I was like, somebody pegged a dragon to a giant X. This crop. Holy shit!
Yep.
Who would do that? How? But yeah, I know. I text you, and I was just like, dude, I was so excited reading it. This was my favorite section of the chapter.
I can imagine. Yeah.
And I was kind of right. We get a dragon, but it just wasn't where I thought it would be.
Yep. Where did you originally think it was going to be?
Under Drift of Volley, which I guess, who knows? Maybe there's still one there. I don't know.
I mean, it did say that something would awaken. So, but yeah, I don't know. Well, so this first part that I liked is bones and larger objects, like 2 leaning towers, were seen in the Imperial Warren, and they had a way of making their way to the surface. And so they kind of make this association that sand was like that, so why not ash as well? And I just loved that comparison to the Imperial Warren with sand. And we could even take it one step further and say Raraku, right? So reversing the situation, we can say that like the Imperial Warren gets its roots from Raraku, things just have a way of naturally appearing in Raraku because of the sand. I'm wondering if that is something that we will eventually see as we progress through the book, is sand revealing something that wasn't there before.
I don't want to say this is a counterpoint, but it kind of is. But something that wasn't there before, maybe we'll get my ocean still.
I mean, I think that eventually water has to come back, right? Because that's elliptical. It was there before and now it's not. So therefore it can exist again, right?
Yeah.
I'm totally on board with your theory.
I think it's a cool one. We'll see.
I totally think that your ocean theory is a very good possibility. Just
we will see.
Based on the themes that Damien has revealed or made light of. So this part where Lestara makes a comment about spiders in the desert making traps, such as the ones that they are potentially in. And for some reason, this immediately makes me think of Magora. Do you think that she has done something like this in the desert for the Soul Taken? Did she help with the deception of the Path of Hands?
I think Poost was probably working alone on that. But that's interesting. I did not think about Megora when they mentioned like the traps in the desert and spiders, but it makes sense.
Just a thought.
Yeah, no, it's a good
I don't
one.
know if it's true or not, but it would be cool. I would like to think that his wife would have a hand or shares a similar interest in Booth's relationship with Shadow Throne.
Maybe.
Who knows? And then my next thought is she picked up and collected a thigh bone. And then immediately what happened after that?
She threw it, didn't she?
And then they fell because the thigh bone caused like an avalanche, is what I'm assuming. So the thigh bone in chapter 8 was an omen or part.
Still blows my mind. Do you remember those specific chapters?
Sorry,
I
dude.
don't.
It's just
No, dude.
just a
I think it's
thing,
awesome.
right?
It's awesome.
So yeah, just an ill omen.
It is interesting that it was a thigh bone again.
Mm-hmm. Also, this Imperial Warren reminds me of Bone Pass. Very early on in the book, when Karza, Delum, and Bayroth are descending the mountain that they call Bone Pass, like before they get to the Lowlander village.
Just with all the bones.
Yeah, essentially. And then my last, like, less obvious comment here is at first I thought, like, when I read it, that Pearl had taken them to the dragon via his warren. But now I understand that his warren just lit up the Imperial Warren and they are seeing this dragon inside of a pocket warren inside of the Imperial Warren.
Yeah, that's pretty wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they're like underground, but they see sky from this other warren and they don't recognize it.
Yep.
That might be in my last section. I don't remember, but
yeah, it's kind of crazy. So it's very interesting. Like just to think of like the level of hiding, but also it makes me think like we know how the Imperial Warren was created. Back in the prologue of Memories of Ice, the Elder Gods took Kalor's world and essentially dumped it somewhere else.
Swept all the ash into it.
Yep. So here's my question. Did this pocket warren exist before the Imperial Warren was made or after?
I guess I don't know that it matters. I feel like somebody probably just opened the Imperial, like this little bubble. That's what I'm envisioning it. Well, it's not little, I guess, but like a bubble with the dragon in it and this other warren, and they just like floated it into the Imperial Warren.
But if I buried treasure in some specific spot and then that spot gets obliterated and moved somewhere else, do I now know where it is?
No.
That's my point. Is that like I'm wondering if the other dragons that put it here now no longer know where it is.
I want to know if it was really dragons that did this. How did they do it?
Right, because it's Otaterral. It fights other sorcery.
How were these, like, I'm just trying to picture in my mind like these other dragons grabbing hammers and nailing it to a cross or X, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. Good questions. And then, of course, my last comment, just the whole Otaterral dragon reveal was just so fucking cool.
100% agree.
But yeah, those are all my thoughts about that section.
I got really excited about the dragon. You know that guy's getting out somehow, right? Like, He's got to be the dragon. It's got to get loose. Somebody's gonna let it out of there.
I mean, it has to. And we already know one player in the game that doesn't want sorcery to exist, right?
Dude, you remember in Deadhouse Gates when who was in the warren and they saw the 3 dragons flying away?
I thought it was just one dragon.
I'm pretty sure there was like 3 of them. They watched them like bank, like they turned as one. What if you think those were the 3 that strung this guy up?
Maybe. I would imagine that this would have happened a long time ago because magic, magery, all of this exists, right? Almost to the point where like gods are fighting over each other, siblings are sundering each other. So I'd imagine that if the Otaterral dragon exists, and I know this is probably one of your points, exists as a balance to that, you take that balance away, and now you have chaos, right?
Yeah. I was just thought that popped into my head here.
Maybe. I feel like this is very, very ancient. But also kind of the opposite of the jade statues, right? Like they're stuck because they're surrounded by Ototero. Where
Yeah.
dragon is stuck because nobody wants that balance.
Somebody doesn't, anyways. But it was definitely exciting reading that. Well, are you ready for my last section here?
Do it to it.
All right. Both were quiet, and Lostara began inching her way away from the ledge. She could see Pearl, who had unveiled enough of his warren to float. He was slightly above the slope, looking at the dragon. Lostara asked for some help, and he said he would extend his warren to her. He told her to relax, and she would float up. She forced herself still. Pearl chuckled, saying she had no grace, but it would do. Pearl told her the dragon was alive. Lostara asked who could have done this. Pearl said whoever it was, they should be thanking them for doing it. The dragon consumes magic, devours warrens. Lostara didn't understand how this dragon could exist. All the old tales said that they were the essence of magic. Pearl said nature always seeks a way to balance. That this dragon answered all dragons that existed or ever would exist. Lostara asked what the Imperial Warren was before it was all ash. He said he saw no value in staying here. Lostara interrupted him, saying he said there was a gate down there. Pearl said it was beyond the ledge and probably last used by whoever nailed the dragon to the cross. They hadn't sealed the gate behind them. Lostara said that was careless. Pearl said more like very confident, and that he would lead them to the gate. As they floated, Lostara asked what he thought about the night sky. She didn't recognize the constellations and had never seen swirls in the sky like that above them. Pearl said it was a different realm, and the swirls were portal to alien worlds. Lostara said he didn't know, did he? Pearl snapped and said, of course not. She told him he could have just said so. Pearl said it was fun to wonder. Plus, how could he be the object of her affection if he didn't know anything? Lostara didn't know he wanted her to be interested in him, so now she would hang on his every word. Should she also look adoringly into his eyes? Pearl looked at her and simply said, men have no chance, do they? Lostara said it was dumb to think otherwise. She asked how much further away they had to sink. Pearl said he didn't know. Lostara said he could have given a better answer. He didn't respond, and Lostara gave him the stink eye. Pearl said if they were descending into the pits of despair, then they were almost at the bottom. Oh, more funniness.
Yeah, I like their relationship. Yeah.
You just can't win. Like, she gets mad because he doesn't give her an answer and just doesn't like, you know what? I don't know. And then he does it 2 seconds later, and she's like, what the hell? And you can tell he's just like, oh, I am over this.
He is rolling his eyes with his whole head.
Oh, yeah. Like, he is not hiding it at all. I didn't really have any thoughts on this, but the idea of, like, portals to other worlds and stuff, and, you know, like, I don't know, all that stuff's really neat, and it makes me wonder, but that's kind of about it.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it acts as a transition between discovering the dragon and their next steps. Yeah. So yeah, I would agree. It was light, it was fluffy, it was sarcastic, it was good. I liked it.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
Not at all.
All right. Well, let's wrap this thing up here.
Let's take it home.
Justin, sing it.
Again. Well, see? Another minute or so passed before they reached the ground. The orb of light illuminating the surrounding area arrived a bit after. They were on a stone floor with no walls. The magic that helped them descend had dissipated. The claw took 2 steps and then gestured to the gate, its outline shimmering. Lostara asked what it was now. Lostara said that the gate was Thyr, or to be more correct, the Elder Warren that Thyr derives from. He couldn't recall its specific name, but did notice that whoever had used it last left tracks. They discerned that the tracks were left by dragons. It made sense to Pearl and Lestara that it would be only other dragons capable of chaining the Otaterral dragon. Lestara asked if they could use fear. Pearl suspected that they could and asked her to follow. They stepped through the gate and stumbled into a realm of gold fire. Immediately before them was a pillar with an unknown language inscribed on it. The heat was intense in this realm, but for the most part, survivable. Lestara was struggling with the oppressive heat and beckoned Pearl that they should leave. Pearl turned around and told her that the names are inscribed on the pillar, the names that chained the Otaterral dragon. A growing roar caught her attention. She turned to see a flame wall growing closer. She called for Pearl's attention. He turned to look and was shocked at what he saw. He stepped back just to slip in some blood on the ground. He asked if she did this, but was met with an immediate no. That's when they noticed the blood trail vanishing into the flames. Pearl said that something was in trouble. Lestara agreed and said that their butts would be too if they didn't get a move on. The firestorm filled up half the sky. Pearl grabbed her arm and plunged around the pillar into a glittering cave. Blood was sprayed here and there, and on the ground was a decapitated Talani mass. Lestara stared down on it. Both arms had been torn off its shoulders. A moment later, they were able to locate the decapitated head. Lestara said that they should get out of here. Pearl agreed and then grabbed the head of the mass. The strange cave vanished, and they were standing on a sun-bleached rock shelf, overlooking a basin that had been once known as a stream. Pearl looked at Lestara and said, "Home?" before raising the Talan's head and demanding that it speak to them. The Talan asked what it was they wished to know. Pearl asked what was his name. The head responded that his name was Olar Shan. Pearl asked what he had been doing in that warren and who was it he was trying to kill. Olar said that they did not try and that they actually accomplished killing the false god, and his kin were trailing to witness its death. Olar commanded that they find him a place for his head to just rest for eternity. Lestara suggested a ledge nearby would suffice. The claw positioned the head so it looked out into the basin. Pearl asked if that was a good enough view for the amass. Olar said that it was. Asked for their names so that they may know his eternal gratitude. Pearl introduces himself and Lestara. Lestara, after a moment, asked Pearl if he knew where they were. Pearl said to give him a minute while he found a good spot for Olar's head to rest. She closed her eyes and thought from ashes to dust to sand. All that remained was following the Malazan lass that vanished months ago. She must have been muttering under her breath because Pearl looked at her and asked if she was good. Lestara asked if Pearl actually knew where they were. Pearl replied that this might be the time for some creative speculations. Then thoughts of murder flashed through her head. Well,
there it is.
Well, there it is. We did it. Yay. All right. So
In one shot, even.
Yeah. One shot. It's been a minute since we've done that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's ranging on 3 hours, 45 minutes of recording time. First thought here is the just the transition from this fiery warren and the pillar to what I'm assuming is Raraku. And just I didn't catch it at first, but the strange cave disappearing must be the transition from the Thir Warren to Raraku. It was just so quick, and if you're not looking for it, you kind of think they're still in Thir, and I just didn't catch it until I was summarizing. So
I don't know if I caught that either, and I also don't know if I caught that. I caught that there was writing on the wall, but I don't know that I caught that it was like the names of those that put the dragon there.
Yeah. So, which is interesting. I mean, like, clearly this is the Warren of Fire and the Warren of the Leosans. So you almost kind of want to think that they may have something to do with it, but I mean, it kind of sounds like other people can walk through other people's homes. So, it's quite easy to just do whatever you please wherever you want. This whole part of Olar saying that his kin went to go witness its death, Just another comparison to the Teblor. There's a lot of it in this chapter, in my opinion. So I don't know if this is like small evidence that the Teblor came from the Amass, which it seems to be that they have. Like we've got the Amass stemming from the Teblor, the Moranth, and the Barghast. Is kind of my triumvirate.
Ooh,
Yeah.
nice word. Good
Yeah.
job.
Thank you, Stephen. And then this comment of ashes to dust to sand, they literally just went through this. Like when she's talking about when Pearl's just kind of, the star is having this moment inside of her head where she's like, ashes to dust to sand. So in the Imperial Warren, it was all ash. And then when they fell down the thing, it was all dusty. And now they're in the sand.
Interesting. Nice catch. I did not think about that at all. I like that.
Yeah. But it also kind of gives you like a resurrection vibe, right? From ashes to dust to sand.
I don't know. Honestly, I was kind of thinking the other way.
Oh, really? Like a death vibe?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, could be. And then it just, again, the time for some creative speculations. Thoughts of murder flashed through her head. I just absolutely loved. I love their dynamic. I just love the way that they interact with each other. And so I couldn't help but chuckle out loud when I finally read that. So.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna kill this guy.
Yeah, because they both just like fuck with each other, and it's quite impressive to witness.
Yeah, there you go.
Woofta. Where do you think this next shorty of a chapter is going to go?
I still want I'm ready for our battle in the desert here. Like I want to see some sort of fight in the desert.
Yeah.
I don't know why that like intrigues me so much, but like I want to see. I kind of want to find out, am I right or am I wrong? Like how capable is?
Or not?
Yeah, how capable is she? Like what's going to happen?
I don't know. I feel like that's probably not going to happen till the end. I feel like there's so much more setup that needs to happen. So maybe we'll get a battle that's left off, and then we'll get a break with Midnight Tides, and then we got to come back to Bone Hunters, and maybe the beginning is like the end of it. I don't know. I mean, it just.
I think we'll see that resolution or some of it. Like I don't think we'll get like a big cliffhanger in that regards.
Well, because I mean, like we only have however much left, right? But like we still have like Warwick's Jade statues, right? We still have all of this stuff with the Otaterral dragon, if there is even more to it, right? We've got Pearl and Lestara trying to find Felozin. We've got Karza's journey into the Jag Odin. You know what I mean? Like, how do you do all of that with the amount of time we have left?
I don't know.
So it's just I don't know. I feel I have a small gut feeling that you may not get your battle, but I could. It's a small feeling, very tiny.
I'm very confident I'm going to get it. Like,
oh, you've been reading ahead?
No. I'm just confident. I don't, but I just like it's been built up. It's got to be a major part of things.
So you've been
like I think
to the point. You've been edged to the point where you need to release.
Jesus, I guess so. I mean, I don't see how we don't get some sort of confrontation between Felison and Tavor. Like, I don't think they're gonna like duel each other or anything like that.
Oh, okay. Yes, I agree that's going to happen. But from what I am understanding, you want this big drawn out battle, right?
I think we'll see a pretty major battle.
Okay.
Between the two armies, Dom's army or Felison and Dom and Tavor, and I think we'll see some clashes there.
Yeah, like I said, it's a small part of me that feels that we may not get that. Don't know why, don't have any rationale or reasoning behind it. It just based on just like the way I'm perceiving everything just doesn't seem like that's the important thing. I don't know. It's weird to explain. But I also think, and I know we were talking last night, but I feel like the pattern that I've noticed with the way that he writes his books is that with the longer chapters, it's usually like a lot of information, but like little reveals. You know, lots of moving the story forward, lots of interactions, et cetera, et cetera. But I feel like with the shorter chapters, it's all like big reveals or like, yeah, I don't even know, like more direct, I guess you could say. Then I know we were talking about that last night. So I think that whatever is going to happen in this next chapter may finally give us some answers to something. What? I couldn't even tell you, but I feel like something pivotal may happen. And I may not even, we'll probably read it when we're done here and I'll be like, wow, it's disappointing.
I will be reading later tonight as well. I gotta go. I'm gonna pick up my kid from my parents' house and have dinner, but I'll be reading at some point tonight before bed or whatever.
Nice.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. It would be nice to move on. And hopefully, before you start all your contracting, we can get this chapter done and out of the way. And hopefully the next one's a little bit longer. So I have some time to summarize while you do your upgrades.
Yeah, we'll see how that all goes. I don't know how big of in a rush we'll be to put things back together because we're going to have to sheetrock and all that type of crap after. Like, they're not doing that. That'll be us. So, yeah, we'll see.
Well, if you need help, let me know.
It's, well, the guy's coming back on Tuesday, so we can give him an answer. And then from there, it'll be somewhere from 2 to 4 weeks before they start. And it'll take them 2 or 3 days to do the whole job. So
Nice. So we got at least 2 weeks. So
yeah,
we should be able to rock this out.
I think, yeah, this next one, yeah. I mean, this month is going to be, depending on when things fall, it's going to be, like, I would think, like, I could probably record sometime next week. And then depending where things fall, because, like, the last weekend of the month, we've got dance competition. The first weekend in May, we have dance competition. Olive is going to prom, and I've got a concert. And then the weekend after that is the kids' birthdays.
All right.
So
I'm gonna be busy.
life is still lifing all over.
Yep.
We'll see what happens. I'm hoping maybe I can finish the other book I'm reading and I can get an episode for you on that, and we'll see what happens.
Oh man.
But
That sounds good.
all right, man. Well, that episode. That chapter was a lot of fun. It was a good time talking to you here, and I'm super excited to read this next chapter tonight.
Me as well. Yeah, it was good to see you again after 2 weeks of not talking.
Whatever it's been, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it'll be nice. Looking forward to finishing it up. I know we got a little bit left, but the other day I was looking at Midnight Tides. You know, just getting ready to like have it in my hands. So
Not yet. Slap.
yeah. I mean, obviously I'm not like reading it or anything, but just like looking at the front and looking at the back and yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Holding it in my hands, really.
Bad, Justin.
I know. What do you do?
Nothing I can do about it.
No. No. All right, sir. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. We'll talk soon.
We'll talk soon. Yeah, let me know what you think if you read it tonight. And once I read it, I'll let you know as well.
Sounds good, man.
All right. Take it easy.
Bye, dude.
Bye.
DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's 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 Epic Quest.